Everybody, and welcome back to the SMITE Pro League here on our third day of the weekend and our third set of the day. It's going to be taking place here. We're going to have the Oni Warriors up against the Atlantis Leviathans. Talking about the two teams just briefly on there, we saw the Leviathans and the Warriors earlier this week. The Leviathans were able to get their first win. Meanwhile, the Warriors had a little bit of a struggle there up against the Olympus Bolts. We'll see if they can reprise that here today. My name is J-Mac. With me, it's going to be Trelly Relly over here on the desk. We talk about these two teams here. It's going to be a tough matchup for the Warriors, especially after the bout they had with the Olympus Bolts and with how clean the Leviathans were looking just in their first set.
Yeah, it's going to be a difficult take for anyone to take on the Leviathans right now, but the Oni Warriors especially. As you mentioned, coming off a loss, they finally get qualified back into the league. They earn their spot as this sort of 8th and 7th team in the league. And now, again, they got to go up against the world champs. It's going to be a tall task, but a lot of veteran talent on this team. A lot of people that have done this sort of thing before. They've been around the block, so definitely not counting them out.
It's been a long weekend of SMITE. A couple of 2-1s on our first day, a couple of 2-1s on our second day, and already a 2-1 here today. A couple of 2-0s there as well between the Titans and the Dragons and the Scarabs. And now that brings us to our third and final set, the one we've been talking about here with the Atlantis Leviathans and the Oni Warriors. Former world champions in the Leviathans, a very difficult team for the Oni Warriors to have to face off for their first week and for their second set here in this week. But kind of talking about the Oni Warriors, I think the dual lane is one area that we can really kind of dial into. It's something we were talking about a lot today for some of these teams, and that's because the dual lane has become such a prevalent topic of discussion for how much farm is on the map, for all the objectives over there. And one team that has been able to step up here has at least been their carry vote.
And this is their carry vote right here, as we can see. It's actually Vinny. Just kidding. Yeah,
when does Vote get more hair?
It does look like right now a lot of people are trying to play out of that duo lane, as you mentioned, just because of how much farm is on the side of the map. That is actually going to be Vote there, obviously. And
there's Vote.
Yeah, just trying to get Vote ahead. Again, the Leviathans have this style of play where they kind of just leave Zapman alone on an island. If he gets camped, he gets camped. If not, no big deal. So Vote definitely should be trying to play out of that lane specifically because everyone else on the Leviathans seem to find a way to find a lead more often than not.
Yeah, and the Oni Warriors as a whole are a very scrappy team in nature. The dual lane is nothing shy of early fighting out here. And as you talk about, Zapman typically gets left alone here. That's something that the Atlantis Leviathans do constantly. They say, all right, Zap, it's 5 minutes. We're going to leave you alone for a little while. But that's allowed a lot of other teams to pick these much more aggressive style of gods. It's something that Vote specifically really loves going with. He goes for these Chirons, these Medusas, to try and get that early pressure in duo.
Yeah, right now, again, you've mentioned it. The duo lane is where you're trying to get ahead early. A lot of these teams just want to put a lot of pressure onto that. And these picks like the Bacchus, as you just saw, like the Medusa, the Chirons, those sort of things want to make sure that they're getting extremely aggressive early on because late game, the Leviathans are pretty much their late game 5v5 team fight is always going to be a force to be reckoned with. So trying to get those leads ahead early are going to be very important.
But if there's a team who's at least familiar with the late game, it is these Oni Warriors. All of their sets or all of their matchups against the Bolts in their first day were very long games, 30 to 40 minutes every single one of them. So if there's at least one team that has some practice when it comes to that late game team fighting and late game skirmishing, it would be the Oni Warriors.
That's a fair point there. Coming off of a very long set where most, if not all, the games went past that 30, 40-minute mark, you have to get very used to that because obviously right now, if you're not constantly fighting for Enhanced Fire Giant, if you're not constantly learning about how late your builds are going to go, it's difficult to sort of make that adjustment.
Oh, talking about the Oni Warriors and talking about the duo lane, we've got Vote standing by for our pregame interview. Kind of pick his brain a little bit. Vote, thanks for joining me here for our pregame interview. Tell me a little bit about what the team was going through with kind of a reset after your recent loss up against the Bolts.
I don't think we played that bad, to be honest. Game 3 was kind of rough. I wasn't happy with how I played in Game 3. I think Game 1 and 2 were actually just pretty good for us. Especially considering how we were last year, I think it was a big improvement.
Yeah, I mean, you guys came in, didn't really have your whole team together up until the tail end. You guys have had a lot of time to start working up here. Now you're going off against the former world champions. Is there any kind of difference that happens over into that dual lane? Do you kind of make any different changes going up against Zapman specifically?
Nah, not really. I think they're more of a, they farm it out, they play for late game. They don't really look for too many aggressive plays early. Or from what the last set they played, they didn't really look for too many aggressive plays early. So I think it's just going to be a little bit of a snooze fest until 20 minutes.
So maybe not expecting a whole lot of early scrapping from you guys over in that lane, at least not for a little while on. As you kind of go towards these late games, so far your team has had some of the most experience with these late game team fights. How does the communication kind of change out whenever you go from early game getting this farm to these more aggressive late game fights?
It just comes down to you guys, each player knowing their own role in the team fight. You know, like who's an engager, who's like tanking, what Daw does need to do, what Fred needs to do. It's just knowing what you need to do. But it's like if one person doesn't know, then the whole thing just goes to. It just goes to.
Yeah, I get what you're going on there. Well, Vo, thank you so much for talking to me here for the pregame interview. I'll let you get back with the team. Good luck in your game.
Thank you.
So still playing for the late game, kind of on both sides. I liked how he talked about more of a snooze fest up against, Zapman, against some of these other duo lanes. And I think he might be right to say so. I mean, we were talking about extensively right before this where the Leviathans duo lane is not one that wants to jump at your throats early on. They just want to make sure that Zapman is comfortable, and then you just kind of leave him there and let him wait for that 20-minute mark.
Yeah, it seems like the Oni Warriors definitely did their homework on that one, just making sure to know, hey, Vote, you're probably not going to get too many chances to engage onto this duo lane because, again, they're going to leave Zap alone. He's going to sit at that tower line. You're not really going to be able to get too aggressive off that duo lane specifically, but looking for other avenues to find your farm in the mid and the solo lane, stuff like that.
Yeah, and the mid is where the Leviathans like to put a lot of pressure on. Off the back of Panatom and Shinto. Shinto always recognized as one of the highest farming players, not just in his role respectively, but also in the league out here. Has some of the more impressive KDAs across the board for all players out here. And we can expect that the Leviathans will continue to draft that pressure, more so for that mid 3v3, I'd imagine.
Yeah, when I look at Shinto, I'm looking at him always have a level or two lead on the opposition, putting Panatom behind sometimes to make sure to get those back camps consistently. But the reason being is because he can make plays like this where he's even or ahead of the enemy mid laner and just has so many items online. He's able to help hard carry these games on the picks like the Tiamat, things like that, where you can get ahead and you really need your items to get online.
You can see Panatom being highlighted here, and with rights to do so. I mean, he has been a pivotal point for this team, kind of a silent killer and a silent carry for the squad out here. I mean, we talk all about the praises of Zapman and Shinto. We talk about, Wrong You and Yarkor all the time. It sometimes feels like Panatom kind of gets left out in the conversation, but without Panatom and without his playstyle here, it's almost impossible for the Leviathans to really facilitate the remainder of their team.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, your jungle is always going to at least open some doors for you, try to get some pressure, alleviate some pressure mostly on the map. If your jungle is not over there helping you when you're getting gank, things of that nature, it's very difficult to get those items online, as we were saying. So as long as you're able to continue farming, Panatom usually is going to be helping out your lane as much as you need. But these guys don't need much help. That's sort of the issue right now is, hey, I'm going to gank left. Is right okay? More often than not, the answer is yes.
Yeah, it kind of comes back to what Vogt was talking about in that interview. When it comes to these late game fights, what's the importance of your communication there? And he said it's everybody knowing what their role is and what you need to do in that fight. And it's that battle of communication towards these late game team fights where both of these teams have had great success. The Leviathans mainly so off the back of Zapman. I mean, when we got to watch back the Worlds documentary, we really got to hear Zap's leadership, at least during the early stages of the game. And then once he's able to join his team in these late game team fights, once we get to these 25, 30-minute bouts, this is when Zapman's mind comes right back in for the team to help them get these pushes.
Yeah, it's very odd to see just an ADC shot caller, right, on a squad. More often than not, it's that support role that you want to have really vocal in your comms, obviously. Even the jungle saying, hey, we can fight this, we can't fight this, things of that nature. But as you said, when we were watching that documentary, it was a lot of Zap saying, guys, play smart, we can fight this, we can go for this objective, make sure to zone this away, this, that, the other. So just having that voice that is always being able to tell you, okay, is this the right call, is this the right call? As long as you're all on the same page, you're really able to operate as this well-oiled machine.
It's going to be a tough battle for the Oni Warriors regardless, even with their matchup to the Olympus Bolts taking it all three. Leviathans also in their match went all three up against the Camelot Kings. But even still, going up against the former World Championships is no easy task here in phase number 1 of Season 9. Both these teams want to come out with a win today. The Warriors more so to stay themselves away from the 0-2 start to the season. The Leviathans want it so that way they can remain 2-0. We'll see if they can do that here in game number 1. Picks and bans are ready to go between these two teams here just in a moment. And one of the gods that we've been talking a lot about with these teams, one god that we've been seeing a lot in the picks and bans, and especially after those highlights, do you expect, Trelly, that Kleena is going to be a god that actually makes it through?
At this point, I think Kleena she does a little bit too much. And people still are just not able to shut her down, really, right? I mean, we see these Kleenas in the wall, just able to completely turn team fights. I just think it was just yesterday where Captain Twig was able to half-health 3 members of the enemy team through the wall. That's just unconfirmed damage. You never know where she's going to pop out at, things of that nature. So I think right now, giving Panatom Kleena specifically, you do not want to do that. So maybe if the Oni Warriors have first pick, they say, hey, we'll pick that Kleena for ourselves and we'll leave it open. But right now, if the Leviathans have first pick, giving them Kleena probably not the best idea.
And when it comes to these two junglers specifically between Panatom and Captain Twig on the other side, they really kind of have two different hats that they wear, kind of depending on the matchup that they go here, whether they play the more setup-oriented jungler, allow the rest of the team to get that farm, these heavy CCs, or like we saw out of Captain Twig kind of at the tail end of their last set, we actually saw him go for a more damage one, be more of the actual carry for their team. Do you expect any kind of change up or maybe a preference on which one you would see for these squads?
I think I accidentally threw you for a loop there. I was just bringing up Captain Twig on the Kleena specifically. This time, though, Cuvo, yes, is going to bring a large amount of pressure on the map. Again, it was sort of in that matchup specifically we were talking about. If the jungles of the Oni Warriors get off on a good start, right? If Cuvo Fred is able to hit the ground running, get a first blood in any sort of lane, he is going to be able to just continue with that gold, go to the other lane, that sort of thing, make sure the whole squad as a unit gets all that gold farm. So, yeah, if Cuvo hits the ground running, the Oni Warriors are going to try to hit early game because, again, even with the early leads, the Leviathans never really lose their footing. They're able to just say, hey, our comp wins late game. Let's just dial it back, not give up these huge wins, just small losses here and there, and then we'll just beat them in our late game team play.
Well, we'll have to see which style of play comes out for both of our junglers between Cuvo and Panatom on this side. Apologies for the delay. We are getting these players right into game here in just a moment, but the man on your screen there, Zapman, one of the bigger shot callers, and as soon as I talk about his name, we want to take it away. We don't get to talk about Zapman anymore. Instead, let's talk over here about the mid lane. We've been seeing a lot of change-ups to the mid, specifically as this season has been progressing. It was the double flat pan start. We go for the Thoth. We go for the Agni. We make sure to get the very big standards out here. But we've been seeing a distinct shift up as far as that's been going through. Zeus has reclaimed his throne here in kind of that mid lane dominance. You expect any extra shakeups here in this game, Trelly?
I mean, when I think of Dardes right now, I just think of how well he's been able to pilot the Morgan. The Morgan pick, very strong right now in the Oni Warriors arsenal. Again, usually when you see these Morgan players, they have 1 to 2 transformations that they like to default to. Paul, for example, always going to that bat out of hell, loving the Camazots. But we've been watching Dardes, and he's been making use of the To the Skies from Horus. You know, he's switching between these ults consistently, and that is what makes this character so difficult to deal with. You don't know what god she's going to transform into, so you don't know how to prep for. You don't know how to say, hey, watch that, you know, Hoonbat's ultimate, for example. But then turns out she actually turned into a Jormungandr, things of that nature where you just don't know what she's going to turn into, so you can never prepare for it.
All right, well, we should be ready to go now into the picks and bans here for game 1 between the Oni Warriors and the Atlantis Leviathans. Sure to be a tough match once again for the Oni Warriors. They're trying to hold on to their spot as they reclaimed coming back into the SPL just earlier on this year. And the Leviathans are looking to still hold on to that World Championship title ship. And with the picks and bans raring and ready to go this time around, the first one off the table is going to be a shot at Wrong You. Yamoja will be the first ban for the Oni Warriors.
It just feels so good to see all 10 players just smiling faces looking back at us after seeing Benny Q in the booth by himself.
Poor Benny.
Yeah, nice turn of pace here, but again, the Kleena is going to be taken away because the Leviathans are not first pick. So they're saying, hey, we don't have that option. We're going to have to ban that one away immediately because we can't pick it and we don't want to put it into the enemy's hands. On that flip side, that Zeus that we've seen pop up here and then again, just as you said, reclaiming his throne, this Zeus brings so much pressure right now, not wanting to give that one away to Shinto, and the Oni Warriors clearly are not prioritizing it for Dardes, so banning that away. And Wrong You Yamoja, I mean, that just goes hand in hand at this point. That pick brings so much pressure, leaving open, at the moment at least, that Atlas, though.
Yeah, Atlas is still up if the Leviathans want to go towards it. Gilgamesh and Erlong Shen are both still available, too, for either of these junglers to go towards here. We've been seeing a lot of priority with those more auto-attack-centric warrior jungles popping up in recent weeks and in recent matches. RDO banned away, though, on the side of Leviathans, and this is a pick that normally we would not so much see surprise banned out here, but especially between the Leviathans and the Oni Warriors, both Nika and Yarkor really do love this god.
Yeah, I would not be surprised if we even saw some Camazots. This is the assassin solos that are in the meta at the moment. More so leaning towards the Guardians, I would say, at the moment as well. The RDO, the Kabrakan, we've even seen Cthulhu, but Camazots, I think both of these assassin players in the solo lane specifically do put a little bit of stock in that pick as well, so would not be surprised if we saw either one of these teams leaning that way. But I still think that the Erlong and the Gilgamesh are going to be on the table. Not anymore, though, because Erlong was just banned away. and the Leviathans still have one more opportunity. Usually, you don't want to give away both of them, so if the Erlong doesn't get banned, you can leave Gilgamesh up because you still have that option, but if one's gone, I wouldn't be too surprised if the Leviathans say, hey, we're not going to get rid of that Gilgamesh as well.
Gilgamesh still up. Bastet still available if we want to go for another one of those initiation-style junglers out there. And then plenty of picks across the remainder of the board to be had. It's honestly kind of wild with how popular Medusa as a pick is, with the amount of times that we see this god top 2'd by every single team. It's honestly a little wild to me that we never see a Medusa ban. Instead, we have the Morrigan ban and then Cabrakan. But going back to it, Medusa, with how dominant she has been across the board, I am utterly shocked we're not seeing a ban to her.
Yeah, I would say right now people are just sort of saying, hey, most of the ADCs right now that are in the meta can make use out of this Crusher Aussie build, have a good amount of early pressure, you know, Cernanos, for example, things like that. So Medusa kind of just the best of that pack, but all of them sort of do the same thing. So you don't really want to waste a ban on the Medusa, but you're right, it is heavily prioritized, as we're seeing that Atlas and that Medusa going to be top 2 for the Leviathans, just making sure to get that dual lane pressure right away as the Oni Warriors hold this valuable flex pick. The Cabrakan could be in the solo lane, as we've seen time and time again, but also could be a popular jungle pick. Even the support role has seen a little bit of this Cabrakan.
Yeah, a lot of flex here on the side of the Warriors with just one pick. The Leviathans with the Atlas Medusa dual lane rounded out already, so we don't have to worry about what's going to go on that left side of the map any longer for the side of the Atlantis Leviathans. Now, option goes back over to Oni Warriors, and we talk about the flexibility of Cabrakan, but Charlie, for your money here, you know, of these 3 players on the Warriors that would take that one, do you have a preference on where you would rather see this Cabrakan going towards?
Yeah, at the moment, I think right now Cabrakan's still strongest in solo, just because the hybrid build suits him best. Either full damage jungle, if you get ahead, you can carry the game. If you get behind, you really can't do anything. I mean, if you're full damage and you're just behind, you're kind of blinking into death at that point. It looks like the Camazotz is going to be locked in. Another flex pick, as we mentioned at the beginning of the draft. Nika likes it a lot in the solo lane, but also could be in the jungle if Cuva wants to pilot it. Still, you know, not quite sure where those picks are going to be going. And then Muzenkob is going to be locked in here. Still, again, a possible mid laner, but it more often than not does go into that carry role. And looking at the fact that Dardes' Morgan was banned out, probably a good option because that Camazotz, again, such a lethal combo.
I feel like we're back kind of to the start of Season 8 with Tiamat because she's had so many games that she's been picked up, but from what I could tell down there, only a single win so far, seeing like a 14% win rate on this god. We'll see if the Leviathans can reprise that and bring it up just a tad here. But as we jump into the ban, some priority already over towards Neil Ma. They're not sure, them being the Leviathans, as to where this Cabrakan is going, so they'll take a double ban up against Neil. Fafnir and Khepri, and on the opposite side, Dodgy and Cthulhu. How do you feel about these 2 bans specifically up against Neil, though?
Yeah, I think just trying to limit some of what Neil's able to do in that dual lane is going to be a smart option here. Khepri just providing a ton of safety, and then Fafnir, obviously the objective burn. Usually why people are picking up this character. I mean, you're just able to shred down Gold Furies early so quickly, and then late game your Fire Giant pressure is going to be pretty much absurd at that point with Coerce. So I do like the Fafnir ban here, and then the Gilgamesh made it through second wave of bans, so that is going to be picked up for Panatom in the jungle role. We were mentioning how if Erlong is banned, usually you want to try to target out that Gilgamesh pretty much immediately, but this time around, not going to be the case, as it looks like double Guardian, double ADC is being hovered. Bacchus for Neil, but then Cernanos or AMC going into that mid lane. We're going to see a lot of shred if this gets locked in.
Most likely, if it is going to be the Cernanos, we'll probably see AMC walk his way towards the mid lane for the B. But with that Gilgamesh, I mean, going back to that one, this is a god that Panatom specifically kind of just ran with at Worlds the entire time. The quote-unquote demon build that he was going, you get a little bit of damage online early, then you go in towards Shogun's Kasari, Witchblade immediately after that, and so you go from being the initial damage right out the way to being more of this get your carries going kind of a god. And with that Bellona locked in, now god should, at least this Gilgamesh, be going back over to Panatom.
Yeah, I do like the Bellona lock in here because you are against a double ADC. Obviously, Scourge going to be pretty annoying. And obviously, again, AMC pretty easy to dive. Bellona, Eagles Rally, able to get on top of this Hunter and then just pretty much make his life miserable. As, again, as you mentioned, probably going to be in that mid lane, this AMC. High clear, you know, Bluestone character that's going to make a lot of use out of this build. But still, you have a good bit of magical damage as well. Bacchus and Cabrakan, that's going to be a large amount of team fight-oriented damage. Obviously, Intoxicate going to be a huge AoE CC ability. So team fight ability aside, I think right now the Leviathans are going to be trying to get active early with this Gilgamesh pick, and Panatom's going to be looking for some early ganks.
So on the side of the Leviathans, we're looking at Tiamat, Gilgamesh to kind of group themselves up towards that mid 2v2. Looking over at the Oni Warriors, if we're going to safely potentially say here that this AMC is going to be going over to the mid, this Kabrak and Camazotz is still holding some of that flexibility. Is there a preferred one that you would rather put there to group up to face off against Gilgatia?
Yeah, I think Kabrakan survives a little bit of the early game better, just having some of that natural tank stats, but I just really like Nikon Camazotz as well. I just think that's one of his signature picks. He plays it a lot in ranked. He plays it a lot in the league, of course. So that's where my mind goes to immediately. But also, I've been loving these full damage jungle builds as well. So it's a tough call for me. But yeah, I think I'd rather see the Camazotz in the solo lane, which means we get to see some of that damage-oriented Kabrakan if that was the case. But again, they're still sort of holding on to that hybrid build just in case.
And you are seeing a bit of that Camazotz-Bellona matchup as it would then be over into that solo. No way for Camazotz to really deal with the Bellona's bludgeon initially, at least no way to stun it out like a Kabrakan would. But at least with the benefit, Bellona should be able to stay in that lane with some of that extra sustain. Camazotz can't just jump over that bludgeon, though, so maybe it is a good matchup over there in that solo Trelly.
Yeah, I just, for my money, I can't figure it out because, again, the Kabrakan actually is a pretty solid matchup into the Bellona. You obviously aren't going to try to trade autos there. Of course, she can Scourge your one stun, but then you could just Shield Bash if she does do enough damage, stun out the bludgeon as well. Either way, though, I'm looking at the mid lane matchup right now. Tiamat versus Muzen Cobb. Tiamat, not the best early clear. She usually needs a few items online to really feel successful in that lane, whereas Muzen Cobb can pretty much just walk up the lane at level 1, level 2, and full clear the wave.
Well, it's going to be a bloody first game here between the Oni Warriors and the Atlantis Leviathans. We'll throw it over to Gormizer and Mifflin for game 1.
And the last set of week 1 kicks off right now. It is going to be Nika on the Camazotz.
Whoa!
And that Kabrakan over there in the jungle. They kind of covered their bases, right? They talked about both on the desk. Well, can Camazotz, well, at least in matchups versus Bellona, especially now that the first auto, I actually didn't see who got it. They both got hit there. I think it might have gone over to Nika. Do you not remember that meme?
No, what meme?
Whoever gets first hit wins. The first auto of the game wins the game.
Whose meme is that? Who?
That's like an SPL meme. That's a SMITE meme.
Gore.
Over like years.
Gore, you know for a fact, and I've gone on record saying this.
So you're a SMITE zoomer and I'm a SMITE boomer.
Well, no, I've been playing.
you've been
I've been
playing.
playing Smite as long as you, but I never watched the broadcast originally when I was still playing, because I was always really afraid.
Did you ever have a favorite caster before you worked here?
Yeah.
Do you have a favorite caster now that you work here?
Yes.
Is it not you? Is it you?
No,
I
it's
guess
not
the better
me.
Question.
I'm a man of the people, Gore. It's got to be Hindu man. Are you kidding?
Well, yeah, that's the.
What
that's
was
a
that?
That's a diplomatic answer.
He's my boss.
he cuts the paychecks and keeps things going. We'll cover up what's happening here in game. A little bit of aggression. I'm excited to watch this. They were talking a little bit about the mid lane. There is an Amuz and Cobb there for Dardes. Very potent towards the end of Season 8. And so far, he's been doing pretty well in Season 9. But it's a Bacchus Kernos versus Medusa Atlas. It feels like we're bound for kills to happen in the duo lane.
Yeah, I would probably still give the edge over towards the Atlas as your core.
Doesn't
down.
make it out of there. I was looking at it like, is he going to be able to close that gap? Trimmers, gonna be complicated for the Bellona to deal with. Also now complicated, a level down on a Camazotz.
Yeah, that is not exactly ideal. And, you know, the meme of whoever lands auto first, be it as it may, I think the lane itself is one that is also likely to favor Camazotz. He's just got so much sustain built into the kit and so much more burst potential as well as survivability that it's not as if he's going to have a whole lot of kill potential. He might now because of the natural experience lead, but as far as like both at level 5, I don't think we're going to see too much action over there. Just a lot of, okay, well, he cleared the way with Screech and he healed with Vampiric Bat, so I'm going to clear the way with Bludgeon and heal with Death Toll. It's a lot of just like wet noodle fighting.
Yeah, slam each other if some damage is going to be there. I will admit, I never noticed for that Camazotz skin that the blood pool is a burger and a drink, which is just fantastic. You'll see the drink pop
I think
in. There
I'm
it is.
offended?
I'm not.
Okay.
But that's because, man, burgers are good, dude.
Okay, so perpetuating the stereotype, I suppose.
Hey, I used to weigh 300 pounds.
I do weigh 300
I like eating
pounds.
food. It's just a thing. Food is good.
Agreed, man.
I see even if I know it's a pre-made burger there that's fake, it's still interesting. Panatom leaps away for some damage there. Stun from Cuvo. And he's going to find another one then on a Panatom. No ults available just yet. They're just shy of that level 5. The damage is still there. Hardcore has to play this one carefully. And so far, Cuvo, I think, is worth talking about. Cabrakan for him has been way more active than I'm used to seeing Cuvo in the first 5 minutes.
Yeah, back in the day, though, Cuvo Fred was a Cabrakan player and is very willing to get his hands dirty, and so far has done so masterfully. I imagine we see him start to look towards some bruiser items in that second slot, potentially a Void Stone or maybe even a helmet to get some of that survivability rolling through, but this Cabrakan is going to make it very difficult for Bologna to survive. It's a fun matchup in that you have to auto-attack to apply the stun, so you could disarm it as your core if you see him coming. Other than that, Cuvo Fred could probably start rotating over towards the duo lane, both Rongyu and Zapman susceptible to those walls.
He might need it here. Neil is the target. Neil's going to go down. There's no way for him to escape. Panatom gets the first kill for the Leviathans on the board, and it is a gank onto the duo lane. So now Cuvo maybe need to go over there just to balance things out.
Yeah, maybe. It's not the biggest experience disparity already. I mean, you could see it in the ADC. Vote still level 5 as opposed to Zapman sitting at level 4. But you're right. You called it. Cuvo Fred already starting the rotation.
He's going to be able to catch out maybe a higher priority targeted Zapman. Zap's going to have to dash towards the jungle. We'll have to see where he goes. Cuvo used the blink to close the gap, but he's still looking for a little bit more. Does not have his move speed buff. Rongyu, Shinto, they're going to be right there. There's the walls from Cuvo, and the trimmers as well. Going to get pulled away. Zaps one hit, and Dardes is going to be able to pick that up. Won't get the stinger back, though. Shinto, Rongyu, soon enough, Panatom coming over to protect the red buff after Zap goes down.
Yeah, the communication was there. Zapman tries to path towards his own team and just turns around a little bit too early. Had he taken just another second worth of W key towards his squad, probably would have received the shell from Rongyu and likely would have survived that exchange. Instead, turns on his heel a little bit too quickly. Was at least able to turn Dardes into stone, but those walls were still blocking off the rest of the Leviathans, and they couldn't step forward.
Well, red buff invade for the Leviathans, and they get it. They're still hovering about 1,000 gold down compared to what we're used to. I'm going to be bouncing
the Leviathans
around
aren't used to this at
normally,
all.
Yeah, I was going to say, they're used to, oh, we're the best at farming. You can see Rongyu following the pattern, picking up every offering he can find, and then one more gets thrown in there, I believe, right as he leaves. But they're going to be that many steps closer to getting their own totem. Obelisk, there we go, completely filled up. And it feels like they've taken a little bit slower pace now. Cuvo just trying to find where his ganks would go, but after that last one, kind of resulting in just a single death. Maybe not as fruitful in the duo lane as they would have wanted. There we go.
Yeah, I
I
still
forgot how to spoke there for a second. I'm
how
sorry.
to spoke? All right.
I'm going to hit the reset button. You talk for a little bit.
Yeah, I think Cuvo Fred can definitely still rotate over towards duo. I mean, anywhere there aren't leaps to deal with, that the walls from his ultimate is probably a good spot as Neomod dashes forward, nearly connects the stun on the Panatom. That should fizzle out from here. As you can see, Rongyu already going for the disengage, but Cuvo Fred won't allow it.
And he's going to get caught out, and that could be the engage. Walls are good on the Panatom. Panatom's not going to be able to escape, and it's a kill for Vote, and he's going to look for another. Neil credit for it, and Rongyu goes down. 2 for an untrade in favor of the Warriors, and they're driving this pace up.
Even with Yarkor making the rotation as well, the Oni Warriors able to get in, get their kills, and get out so quickly. The Oni Warriors have established a lead in the majority of their sets so far, but the main stumbling point for this team is not getting the lead, it's playing with it. Where do you go once you've established it? How are you going to push this lead even further? 2,000 at the 6-minute mark is significant, so what can they continue to do? Is it time to start looking for some invades, maybe playing around neutrals, or maybe just playing for your life? Myuma playing with fire. If that lacerate was available to Zapman, likely would have resulted in the support's death.
Now it's going to be eyes on the jungle for me. 0-0-4. Divine Ruin picked up for Cuvo Fred. He's going to be backing now, presumably picking up another power item. Maybe some prots. It's the silver breastplate online earlier this time around. With a lot of physical damage on the other side, makes sense, especially with how aggressive he's getting. How do you like the Divine form that early? I feel like I don't typically see that on a Cabrakan.
Yeah, he's not the best applicator of anti-heal. I think he is just picking it up for the raw stats, some flat pen, some power, a good deal of power, to be sure. And there is some anti-heal that you could worry about just in the Aussie from Zap.
Beads used by Vote. He almost turns around to kill onto Zapman, but the 3v1 from the Leviathans is a little too strong for him. They're able to get that kill. Start moving over to the jungle. Low health bars. They're going to be going for the Oracle Harpies here. Should be able to confirm that no problem. Get some vision advantage around the Gold Fury. Zap's still going to have to play careful. He's hovering around half health.
Yeah, doesn't have any sustain available, so spotted out now by Neil Ma. I'm not sure if the Bacchus combo is going to be enough. Definitely needed the damage from belly flop, so Zapman secures his own escape. And Rong Yu, locking eyes with Cuvo Fred in the jungle, will deter him from stepping forward as well. The Leviathans, as of now, are just trying to bide time and farm up passively on the map. And they're doing it the Leviathan way. Shinto clearing out back camps on his own, and Panatom fighting for scraps elsewhere.
Just the standard for the Leviathans.
The Leviathan way.
Panatom eating whatever Shinto leaves for you. And you know what? I mean, he keeps pace, and that's what matters right now. Did as well pick up his bounty, or his quest, I guess is the technical term for it, in terms of items. So he's been running around in the jungle pretty securely. Not as much action out of him. I mean, we've seen a little bit of him over towards the duo lane. Nothing to help out Hardcore since earlier on. 2 levels up is going to be Nika. So that Camazot's only getting 1 kill earlier, but he's found a lot of pressure and a lot of farm because of it.
That lane's over for Yarkor. I mean, he has lost this lane. He can hold his own from here, and that would be a relative win for the Leviathans. But a Camazot's with the lead, going down the power path, already with Blackthorn, moving in towards Transcendence, and starting to get some stacks up with about a level and a half lead. He's nearly unkillable by nature of being Camazot's. Yarkor just going to hang out over here.
He's got Panatom's help. I called out that there wasn't a lot happening. The drop
What a
kick's not going to
juke.
connect, and Nika is going to be feeling fine about this one. His health a little worse for wear. That's all that this gank is going to show. A great juke from him. He's gone into the Transcendence as well, Mifflin. So Nika's going to be, taking a little bit of time to get everything online for his build. That might not slow him down. Jumps forward, damage onto Panatom. Cuvo's here. Cuvo has the walls if necessary.
Whoa.
Doesn't even need him. Look at that damage from the 1-2 punch. This Cabrakan slamming Panatom back.
Yeah, imagine had he gone for a little bit more power in his build, that tactical nuke style likely would have paid off right there. But once he backs and picks up the Breastplate of Valor, he'll just be able to do it a little bit more often. The lead for Cuvo Fred, generally the originator of that damage, as Neilma gets aggressive.
He's
Good lord.
hovering around here. Yeah, the punch from Cuvo is so much damage. Neil might get caught out, though. Does not have the belly flop yet. The stun's going to be great, and Hardcore is going to find the kill. Cuvo getting knocked around. The Winds of Shamash slowing him down, and the kill goes to Shinto. And they tie it up 4-4, 11 minutes in.
So now the Leviathans as a 5-stack will pull out the Gold Fury. What's the response from the Oni Warriors? It's just Stardust in range. Yeah, and I don't agree with stepping up to the Fury itself. Thought maybe we'd see him rotate over towards the Pyromancer with the help of Nika, who is still hovering in the solo. Likely could have been able to clear that one out. Instead, Leviathans take the fight, they take the Gold Fury, and they take the game right back to neutral.
Really good start for them and a great way to continue this track for them. As long as they can find the farm now, right? That has been the interesting thing for the Warriors. I'm not used to seeing, and I don't think the Leviathans are used to seeing themselves fall behind in terms of that farm game, experience game. Maybe solo lane, kind of used to that. Nika is a little wild when it comes down to that. He's good. Is
Sure
the best way
is.
to describe it. Pyromancer picked up by the Warriors. They're going to be able to secure that one no problem. A little late on the rotation for Panatom and Hardcore. So that's going to help give them, again, another nudge of a lead, just a little over 1,000.
Yeah, so expect the game to start to slow down a bit from here, unless Cuvo Fred is the one starting up the aggression, because the Leviathans are a scaling team composition between Atlas, Tiamat, and Medusa. You can wait it out a fair bit, whereas I think Neilma would love to get involved now.
He wants to try so hard to get in there. Has the blink as well. If you're looking for an aggressive Bacchus that gets him in while still allowing the belly flop to either be a disengage or a re-engage, depending on how he wants to do it. so far, despite the fact that he wants to fight incredibly hard, has not been able to find it. Beads burned by Dardas.
Yeah, easy beads pickup for Rong Yu, who's able to grab him in the midst of that team fight as that man lines up against Vote with the help of Rong Yu.
Yeah, Rong Yu's here to play savior, but Neil comes in to disrupt it. The belly flop's going to close the gap there. Panatom, he's around, but it seems like the disengage too strong from the Warriors. Beads burned by Zap as well. So the Warriors get a lot.
Yeah, surprised that Panatom doesn't commit the kill onto Neilma. Neilma at 2-2 has got a pretty decent bounty at this point, had just used the leap and the blink, so no escapes available. Wins a Shamash up for Panatom, but I suppose holding on to it for a higher value target a little bit later on. And, well, the only Warriors were still close to their side of the map, so maybe not very confident in his ability to finish off that kill, despite Neilma not having a true physical dedicated defense item and not finishing up that stacked Gauntlet of Thebes. Curious to see. The Leviathans taking a very slow pace to this one. The Oni Warriors still nursing their 2,000 gold lead. 13.5 minutes into this game. Power Spike roundup. Nika just finished stacking up that Transcendence. Yarkor has closed up that experience gap significantly, now down to about a level, maybe a half level in favor of Nika in the lane. And with the Shogun's Kusari, Yarkor just got a lot stronger.
Yeah, swinging faster. It's going to help out Panatom's going to help out Zapman. So feeling really solid about Hardcore's presence throughout the game, what he's going to be able to provide. Zap, maybe not feeling too strongly about where he is. This Medusa just shy of getting bullied by a majority of the Warriors. And it might still happen. Great walls from Cuvo, and we've seen how much this punch can do. Zap's going to use the ult, but it's not going to connect onto anybody. That's the Aegis as well, burned away from him, and the Shell from Rong Yu. So they don't get the kill, but the Warriors pull a lot of utility from the Leviathans.
Beads and Aegis now down on Zapman, as well as the Petrify. No CC immunity available as Rong Yu is the target of aggression.
Yeah, with the Polymorph available to him, the Prot Shred from Rong Yu, at least helping a little bit in terms of alleviating that pressure. The Warriors are out for blood, though. I mean, they are looking for as many kills as they can find. Luckily for the Leviathans, the find part has been very hard, but they are still knocking a majority of them back to base at the minimum.
Yeah, just some TKOs on the map as of now. The Primal Fury will be respawning in just under a minute or so, and, well, Pyromancer will be right behind it. Don't expect this next team fight to be a split with Pyromancer desynced. The Leviathans or the Oni Warriors, if they're the ones who decide to start up the aggression around this objective, will force the opposition to show up and defend. As of now, advantage over towards the Oni Warriors. We've got some slight XP leads, some significant XP leads. 2 levels for Nika out of the Soul lane. Gold lead as well, so some of these builds starting to round up. Significant Power Spike just finished for Vote, who picks up the Wind Demon. So crit available means that you've just made it a lot easier to get these neutral objectives. Whereas Zapman still sitting on the tier 2, 10-star Shuriken. Doesn't really have a whole lot of stats on that item. One of the weaker tier 2s in the game.
Yeah, not a lot that he's going to have to wiggle with. He's back in the base right now. Nika chased down by Hardcore. Stun not going to connect from the ult. Eagles Rally is out there. Nika seems to be just fine. Now the Hardcore peels away. Ult for none. And realistically keeps things more controlled. This Bologna is going to come online eventually, and you had highlighted it earlier. Hardcore's been working at trying to keep things a little bit more even. Just ticked over to 15, so not quite a full 2-level deficit. But still not the best lane phase. Frostbound Hammer finished, but the Caduceus Shield on the other side has been picked up.
Yeah, Nika going to be very, very difficult to kill. Relic difference, though. Yarkor has got teleport available. So once he clears out that wave, should be able to match the rotation of Nika on the other side. Gold Fury pulled out, dropped to 50%. The Leviathans hovering close.
They're going to go in. Winds of Shamash dropped, and Leviathans are going to be able to peel that one away. Neil goes in. Knock up onto Zap is good. The Atlas ult trying to find where it wants to go. Shinto in a little bit of trouble. Aegis is good. Nika, though, a little bit stronger and is able to find the kill. So 1 for Gold Fury. Nika trying to get out with his life. Rong Yu gets burned down, and it looks like Zap's going to be next on the chopping block. The jump in, the knock-up is good, and Nika finds himself a double. They killed off Cuvo, but they're losing member 1 by 1. Nika gets himself a triple. Panatom's just running for his life.
He's got the entirety of the Oni Warriors, barring Cuvo Fred, on his heels, buying some time. It seems like Nika was taking the high path there just to make sure that Panatom wasn't able to path towards his own base, but Panatom would love to be pathing towards the Fire Giant. Oni Warriors looking at the largest neutral objective on the map, 4 strong.
Panatom didn't back, and he has some vision. Now pings up. Oh, potentially
give
not
up.
quite on that ward. Yeah, falls back. FG to the Oni Warriors. Cubo clapping in the player cam as he respawns here. Feeling confident and for good reason. 3,000 gold ahead. They might lose the Fury, but they get the biggest objective in the game. And this is maybe the first time, and genuinely, since the inception of these team names, that the Oni Warriors might have had a lead over the Leviathans. I mean, this is impressive play from them.
It is. And in that last team fight, it was uncharacteristic, slow reactions from the Leviathans. Yarkor leaves Zapman to his own devices in a 1v1 against Cubo Fred for maybe 2 or 3 seconds too long. Then there was an easy collapse for the rest of the Oni Warriors to finish off that kill. Eventually, Yarkor does peel back and secure the kill onto Cubo, but the Leviathans essentially were divided and conquered by the Oni Warriors, and we have gotten past the point where the Oni Warriors have traditionally struggled. It was the ability to secure these large neutral objectives, the ability to go towards the Fire Giant and get it for themselves and gear up to start sieging some of these towers. Now, Oni Warriors, with Fire Giant on 4, only Cubo Fred, lacking the enhanced buff, going to have to work their way across the map. Nika acting as the solo agent in mid, lined up against Panatom, whereas the rest of his team, barring Cubo Fred, in left.
The wall's just shy of getting Panatom. Panatom wins the Shamash drop for the slow. It seems like he's going to get out of there, but really it's because the Oni Warriors have a better target in mind. Towers are their goal, and Towers has been the win for them. 2 over there and left, 1 now in mid that they've managed to knock down. They're not going to go into the Phoenix, though, Mifflin. They're feeling not quite that confident against the Leviathans to try and rush that to happen. Instead, it's going to be a mid-lane turn. Stun doesn't connect on the Nika. Panatom goes forward. They force out the CC immunity in the ultimate. And that bat out of hell, well, that's why Camazotz has seen so much play. Just so much safety in one pick.
Yeah, still has his beads available. They were on cooldown, going to come back up in 2 seconds, so you think it's pretty easy to kill Nika from here. Not the case. Still has some more CC immunity in his back pocket. The Leviathans very quickly scurry back to their tier 2 mid-tower, reestablish that defensive line as the Oni Warriors, grouped as 5, are starting to approach.
They're going to be able to walk in. There's the Frenzy. So the tower absolutely shredded. Neil Ma might end up following a similar fate. Slows are going to be there. Stun's going to be good from Hardcore. He drops the Intoxicate to peel, and Zapman is the one in trouble. Good drop kick from Panatom. Continues to peel for them, and Cubo Fred goes down. Neil Ma's low and can't re-engage, and that's going to be a lot of frontline pressure disappeared from the Warriors. They're running away. A minute left on this Fire Giant power play, and it doesn't seem like it's going to make the big difference when Ramash slowing things down. Vote Dardez trying to turn it around, but instead Nika is going to come back in full health and a lot of damage to offer. He picks up 2, and it's Hardcore and Zapman taken down, and they're gonna go for more. Shinto, let's make it 3. Can he find himself a 4th? And that is gonna be the pickup on the Panatom. Wrong you is all that stands between him and a full-on deicide, but Nika not gonna be able to quite chase it out. Either way, it is a huge wipe from the Leviathans.
The Leviathans, again, just not on the same page, Gore. It was a dash forward, some Zapman into the tier 2, while the rest of the Leviathans were trying to peel themselves out. Now the Oni Warriors get to start moving up towards this Phoenix. It's burning a little bit slower than I think they'd like. Minion Wave going to be there shortly, but luckily Nika has closed that gap. And are they going for the end? No way.
They're walking in 10 seconds without Hardcore and Zap, and they've got some damage on them, but is this going to work out for them? That's going to be the big question. Toss away to slow down some of the damage. Minions are here. Dardez is going to get pushed out here alongside Neil. Yeah, that is a solid push, but maybe not something that they wanted to do. But now, have they overstayed their welcome? Doesn't seem like the Leviathans are going to catch up.
No way for them to close that gap. And even if had they done so, Nika very survivable at this point. He was the furthest one forward for the Oni Warriors. So the rest of the Leviathans are able to respawn, and the Titan doesn't even take that significant amount of damage. It was able to regen once it was reset. So about 90% on the Titans, still healthy here. And the mid-Phoenix, still not the worst case scenario for the Leviathans. What is worst case is that the Oni Warriors have got themselves a massive gold lead now. 21 minutes in, still impactful. And Cubo Fred, scary enough on his own to keep the Leviathans from going in towards this gold Fury. 30 seconds left on the Fire Giant. This would make it a little bit easier. Head back to base, spend that gold. It's a bunch of wards in your pocket.
Yeah, free money for the Oni Warriors here. Didn't have to expend too much. Like you said, maybe they'll have to spend some time buying things. It doesn't even look like they're backing off of that. They still have plenty of time for the FG fully reforms here. A lot of relics about to come off cooldown, which is great for the Warriors. Not so great for the Leviathans. A little bit longer on some of those. Maybe if a big fight breaks out at the very onset of the Fire Giant respawning, then something big could be in favor of the Warriors. Otherwise, if we go about this at the same pace that this game has been otherwise, we're going to be looking at a pretty, well, a quote-unquote even team fight, right? All ults, all relics available. But this gold lead, I mean, 9,000 in the hole for the Leviathans is not something that I think we're used to seeing.
And the Oni Warriors are going to press while the iron is hot, pull out this Fire Giant, already down to 50%. The Leviathans are not willing to show up and defend. They like their odds in a base defense, and I could imagine why. The last one went relatively well until they overextended on the chase. Fire Giant has fallen. Pyromancer will follow. The Leviathans, privy to both, grouped up. This 3-stack in mid, dangerous. The 2-stack in left, not so much. Maybe at least expose a tier 2 tower in the duo lane. Get your team a little bit of global golden experience before you're forced to head back to base. Try and defend. Panatom, though, if he was spotted out by Nika, that could have been huge for the Oni Warriors. Just keep him at bay.
Well, good news, it's still a huge play for them over here on right. That is that they get the tier 2. Last tower that was standing for the Leviathans gone now. So that Titan, a lot weaker. They're potentially going to be able to jump forward, cause some distress specifically to these Phoenixes. But you had mentioned it, a little cautious trying to figure out how to break into this base.
Yeah, your ability to shred Phoenixes is incredibly high, but getting through the front line is difficult without a mage.
Well, Neil goes in. He's looking for a stun. Not going to be able to find it. The belly flop wasn't good either, and now it's a disengaged fight from the Warriors. Split up, but Zatman's low. Zatman might be an easy kill. The ult comes through, and Nika's slow. A little more damage from the Phoenix, and anybody else, maybe he goes down. Instead, it's the turnaround for the Warriors. Vote picks that one up, and they've got fire minions coming in on mid. They've got the power with them. But it is a 5v4. Still not confident enough to go straight to the Titan. Instead, it's a beeline to the left Phoenix.
Nika's going to resustain pretty quickly. Just Vampire Bats any camp. And with that Caduceus shield, should be able to resustain with the help of Fire Giant as well. Leviathans are strong as 4, but it's going to be 40 seconds on Yarkor.
Ooh, double knock-up from Neil, and the damage follow-up from Dardes is just too much to handle. Nika makes sure to put one more down. It's Shinto and Zap trying to do whatever they can, but they won't have the time, and they won't have the means. The Leviathans have been put down by the Oni Warriors here in game number 1.
And Cubo Fred popping off preemptively from the grayscale screen. Absolutely fine. 0-4 and 12 for the jungler, but sometimes KDAs do not reflect your impact on a match, and this can count itself amongst those times because Cubo Fred comes up massive.
Yeah, there were several walls that were in his favor, his early pressure that made it just so good for them. I'm just so thoroughly impressed. I mean, again, this is a Warriors team. I'd be hard-pressed. I would go back to look at Season 8. I'm not sure they took any pressure against the Leviathans, any game against the Leviathans throughout the year. I guess I'd double-check it, but this is impressive for them to be able to come back, earn their spot back in, and you said earn their, keep in the SPL here. So far, game number 1, yeah, they've done it. We'll see what happens in game number 2 right after this.
Warriors pull it off here in game number 1 to take a lead in this set up against the Atlantis Leviathans. And we were kind of questioning maybe where this Camazotz, where this Cabrakan was going to fall into place for this team, and it seems that it fell into the perfect hands this time around. Charlie, looking at this game back, I mean, Cuvo Fred able to find a ton of walls on this Cabrakan. Nika putting out an immense amount of damage on this Camazotz. The rest of the team, though, I mean, the team as a whole here for the Oni Warriors, Charlie, really popping off in game 1.
Yeah, as I mentioned before that game started, when Cuvo gets off to a hot start, when he gets an early lead, he's able to pretty much put his whole team ahead, and that's sort of what happened there. Obviously, getting the early kill on Yarkor, then Nika has this lead where he can kind of just rotate whenever he wants and then just pop off late game on this Camazotz. It really just seemed like we all know how good the Leviathan's late game team fight is, but if you don't let them get to that point and you have this incredible lead beforehand, it's going to look very solid as the game goes on.
I mean, Nika, just a menace across the map on this Camazotz, consistent diving up against the Leviathans. And this is something that the Leviathans are normally known with being good at dealing with, is being able to allow their backliners to have infinite amount of space between Shinto and Zapman, usually never have to worry about any kind of threat. But this triple dive comp that the Oni Warriors have put together in this one made it towards Shinto and Zap and pretty much everybody on Leviathans never had a safe space to go to.
Yeah, I also have to give some props to Neil there, obviously. Just being able to hit these big flops, it really seemed like he never lost his aggression, always just going in with the squad, creating space, disrupting not just the back line, not just the front line, pretty much the whole Leviathans as a whole. Yeah, Neil was just pretty much going in consistently, and when you have a tank like that that's just able to create that much space, your whole team is going to look really solid doing it.
Great plays across the board here for the Oni Warriors in game number 1. Put themselves up at match point up against the Leviathans now. So the question now comes to the Leviathans is looking holistically at this Warriors draft. Is there any particular god Charlie that really sticks out that you want to see the Leviathans either maybe draft to pick up for themselves or just flat out take off the table?
Yeah, I would say right now, unless your first pick, giving this Camazotz to Nika probably not the best option, unless, again, you're putting all that stock in the Kalina pick that was banned away this time. You know, maybe say, hey, you get the Camazotz, we get this Kalina. Right now, I just think Nika was pretty unstoppable on this Camazotz pick. And again, Cuvo, despite going 0-4 in the stat line, was still able to set up so much. His positioning and where he was, those 12 assists are what you really want to look at there. He was all over the map, and those walls were coming in super clutch. So, yeah, I would say the Camazotz is definitely something to zero in on there. And again, Neil Ma's this Bacchus pick? Yeah, I would say that would also be a little something to probably try to shut down.
Yeah, I mean, Bacchus is something that teams have been banning away, whether it be immediately in the first phase or if a support isn't picked up by the time the second ban phase comes around. We've been seeing a lot of priority taking him away here. But with game number 1 done and the Oni Warriors now up into the lead, they can be poised to take this set up against the future world champ, or the former world champions out here, and kind of end their runs. Nobody's been able to take a set off of these guys just yet between the kickoff tournament and between their very first set of the week. Leviathans haven't really felt what a full loss is like yet.
Yeah, let the record show that the Camelot Kings did take game 1 off them as well. So it seems like right now the Leviathans they get off to a little slow start. We're definitely going to see some more action in game 2, I would say. They're learning as they play. Of course, it's a new meta. It's a new season. There's a little bit different map play. So just trying to feel out the Oni Warriors seems to be the play for right now.
We're talking a lot about the Bacchus, a lot about the Camazotz, and maybe this Cabrakan too. We'll see what the Leviathans elect to deal with the most here. The picks and bans of game number 2. Those are ready to go and underway. Leviathans, now with the first pick, have a lot of options up for themselves. They can ban a couple of them away and take one for themselves. They can just outright full ban them and grab a whole new strategy here, Trelly. And the first one that they think was the major problem, though, is going to be that Amuzen Cobb.
Yeah, I think right now the Leviathans are just going to say, hey, we're going to ban a good portion of your last draft, forcing you to ban away either the Camazotz or the Kalina. And if you don't, we're going to pick that up. So right now, obviously, a lot of pressure on this AMC mid. They want to say, hey, we're going to take that one away. Cuvo, as I already mentioned, those walls were pretty clutch last game. But you can pretty much just take away from their last draft because you're in this first pick spot, and you know both of these teams are going to put priority in the Kalina and the Camazotz.
Well, so far, it's just been a lot of what we saw in the last game, plus making sure that Wrong You still doesn't get that Yamoja. Yamoja Zeus banned away by the Oni Warriors, and it will be Camazotz this time around. So now the ultimate question comes to the Oni Warriors. Are they willing to ban away that Kalina and not allow the Leviathans to get their hand on that, whether it be over towards Panatom or Yarkor in that solo lane? But if this Kalina is left open, maybe a safe assumption that it gets first picked here by the Leviathans. If that's the case, then Trelly, if you're the Oni Warriors, what do you draft after?
You definitely have the Bastet open if it does go that way. We already know that Nika has the pop-off games on the Bastet. He loves these assassins in the solo lane. It does look like the Erlong is going to be banned away here, so I don't imagine the Leviathans will take too long to take the Kleina here unless they really aren't putting that much stock in it. It seemed like they banned it away, and we've already seen how destructive this pick can be, so I don't imagine they'll think about it too much longer, and they don't. So it is going to be the first pick Kleina here, and now, yeah, as I was saying, I think the Bastet could definitely be a point of contention for the Oni Warriors.
And the Oni Warriors do have option now, as the Kleina does get first picked by the Leviathans. There's an Erlong Shen for a final ban, but that leaves Ardio open, a god that I'm not going to say that we forgot about or that necessarily anybody really forgets about, because sometimes she just makes her way into the bans. Sometimes she finds her ways into games. The 3 that she has jumped in so far, though, have not been successful. It is blanks across the board for Ardio. Not a single win just yet. That's actually a little shocking.
Yeah, I think it's like Tiamat, like the win rate suggests. I don't think it's really the pick that's the issue. It's usually just the fact that because these picks are so popular, again, only 3 games, not that much, but the ban rate is also there. They're sort of team comp enhancers, right? If you have a strong draft, the RDO is going to look even better. If you have a bad draft, the RDO is going to try to do its best, but it's going to fall a little short here. But still, just getting Nika on this lane bully character that just, never really loses lane, sort of just nets even, has a lot of sustain, things like that. I don't really think that's ever going to be a bad thing. This time, though, opting to get the Gilgamesh, taking that away from Panatom. So now, Cuvo's going to have a lot of early aggression in this Gilgamesh pick.
Now, if you're picking up this Kleina here for the Leviathans and you're staring at Ardio Gilgamesh on the other side, is Panatom wanting to take this god, or do you think the Leviathans push this one over and maybe give this one to Yarkor in the solo lane and just have it deal with the Ardio on its own?
Usually, for my money, I say let's put the Kleina in solo lane, but after watching Panatom pilot this pick, I don't want to see it in anyone's hands but the Panatom right now. The jungle Kleina, the full damage, it just seems to be able to output so much, and he's able to change these team fights so much as well. Smifflin scurries off into the sidelines. So yeah, I really do enjoy the jungle, and it seems like that looks like their option as well, because the Cthulhu and the Morgan, Cthulhu 2, is that what we were calling it? Or Cthulhu 2, that's what we'll go with here.
Yeah, there's the Cthulhu, the
Okay.
Cthulhu 2. There's many different trains and avenues that you could go with that god. I'm a proponent of Cthulhu 2.
Okay.
So that's where I stick with. You don't have to put your stock in there if you don't wish to. But it will be Cthulhu and the Morgan, an optimal transformation target for this god. Same thing with the Kleina. A lot of options here. Even the Gilgamesh could be something that this Morgan transforms into. Goes back over to the Oni Warriors, and it will be Iset locked in. Whether that be towards the mid lane, though, or the support, I'm not 100% on Charlie, because Shinto over on the Leviathans really highly praises this god as a mid laner. Meanwhile, almost every other team in the league has been valuing it as a support. If you're the Oni Warriors here, do you want to take Neil off of those big, strong initiators like that Bacchus and put him on the Iset, or would you rather throw Dardes on that god?
I definitely think that Iset right now would work better in their draft as the support, and because of that Nox ban, that makes me think the same sort of thing right now. Nox is going to shut down that Wing Gust early in that duo lane. Obviously, Rongyu has a solid Nox support, and it seems like they think so as well, so they're going to ban that one away. But either way, as you mentioned, the Iset mid has some crazy damage numbers. Her sustain is always going to be decent with the Circle of Protection, and the lockdown is what I'm highlighting at the moment. So it could go either way, but I think right now, because of those bans, they're trying to ban away support specifically.
We do see a Medusa ban this time. It is in the second phase, though. And a Tiamat banned away by the Atlantis Leviathans. Now they've locked in their mid laner. Oni Warriors still need both. They're no longer mid laner, actually. It was going to be a mid lane E-set, so maybe a bit of a waste of a ban on a Tiamat there, or maybe trying to force this E-set to go over towards mid. But the Oni Warriors will get Kepri, a pick that Neil has been very favored towards, a pick that he really likes to run with.
Yeah, I'm imagining, because right now we're seeing that Iset mid. The Morgan is going to have a great time diving Iset. Obviously, right now you get the stun, you put the Dark Omen, and then you go into the Descent into Madness. That's going to be very difficult for Iset to try to live here. But as you mentioned, that Scarab's Blessing is always going to come into fruition here. So a large amount of safety and just a safety net, we'll call it. Whenever your carries go a little bit too far here, they're always going to have that Kepri to say, hey, no worries, I got your back. As the Leviathans are going to draft their dual lane, going to be Ganesha and Cupid. We've seen a few Cupids here, 50% win rate. We saw Barracuda with a different style of build for this Cupid, but either way, I think Cupid actually sits a little awkward in the meta right now, where there is a few picks specifically the Ardio, the Gilgamesh, these sort of characters, even Khepri, are going to get caught out with that Fields of Love. It's going to be very annoying, but Sprint, again, is just going to sort of counter that ultimate.
We have been seeing a slight stray from the full crit meta that we were kind of used to. You know, you get the Wind Demon, the Deathbringer kind of as that combo. We've been seeing a lot more of these Hunter players kind of shy away from that point here. And to me, it then kind of feels like maybe this Cupid does end up slotting itself in here. Great matchup against the opposition. I mean, Ardio's not going to be able to do much against the Cupid. Gilgamesh is going to maybe struggle a bit here. But how do you like this Chernobog currently being hovered but not locked in? So don't tell me anything about Chernobog. Talk to me about an Artemis 10th pick.
Yeah, I was going to say, if the Chernobog did get locked in, the Morgan would just have another global opportunity to just turn into and, join the team. By this time around, though, the Artemis, I would say, is actually pretty solid into the Morgan. Again, if you are the Morgan and you're getting hit by Tusky and then you switch into someone, you do get bunked again by Tusky. It's one of those interesting interactions where you want to make sure you have the beads available if you are going to be ulting as the Morgan with a Caledonian Boar in the mix. But either way, there's a lot of different transformations here. The Cthulhu probably still going to be the main attraction here for Shinto, but the Artemis, that's sort of one of those picks that's not going to get ahead early, but late game is going to be shredding, especially if you have two Cthulhus. You're going to want that chin size online pretty early, and then you're just able to shred through those health bars.
I kind of thought of as one of the earliest hyper carries in Smite being that Artemis alongside like Freya, Kali, Mercury up until that time. We don't see a whole lot of Artemis anymore. There are certain metas where she does kind of pop herself in and out here. You're Leviathans right now, Charlie. You're on the back foot. Where do you find that avenue in order to bring yourself back in here and take us to game number 3? Where do you put your focus going up against the Oni Warriors here in game 2?
I'm thinking right now you're probably ganking duo lane trying to get Zap ahead because I think Shinto on the Morgan is going to get ahead regardless. Into the E set, I just don't think there's too much avenue for a kill there unless you're constantly sitting on the Morgan right now. I think Shinto's just going to get Doom Orb, zoom to farm, or just go for the double flat pen start either way, but just try to get ahead, and then late game, you're going to have a very solid time.
And then if you're the Oni Warriors up here, you are now poised to take this set. I mean, you're up 1-0. You only need to get this win here up against the Leviathans. What's that pivot point now for the Oni Warriors? Where do they put their focus? That way they can ensure themselves a clean 2-0 set.
I mean, you got to get this Artemis online, right? If Vote is able to rotate to these team fights late game, even one Cthulhu, two Cthulhus, it doesn't really matter. You're going to have so much damage, and you're not going to be able to out-trade that Caledonian Boar. So I think if you get Vote online, and you just say, hey, we have a Scarab's Blessing, so even if you are going to dive us that hard, we're going to have that reset potential. We're just going to try to get this Artemis online, and late game it's going to carry. That's the idea.
I mean, I'm looking at an immense amount of team fight from really both these teams out here. As we talked about, two Cthulhus popped around. You have Ganesh and Cupid, lots of AoE denial. But maybe the same can be said here for the Oni Warriors. I mean, Gilgamesh and Eset, both kind of no-play zones in their own right.
Yeah, but that's the thing. You do have this Eset ult, and it is mid, obviously, so you're going to have a lot more damage and a lot more confirm. But the Leviathans can just say, hey, we have an Eset too, and we're going to confirm that just as quickly because we have the Morgan. Shinto's going to turn to Eset if they need to and just say, this Gold Fury is done. So you're going to have to watch out on both sides.
Leviathans going to need to pivot this game in their advantage. They want to move on into game number 3. But before we can see if game 3 happens, let's see what happens in game 2.
This is going to be a big one. The Oni Warriors, Mifflin, I did decide to double check it. First win ever against the Leviathans in a game. Right then.
What, that was it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Could potentially
Your
be
wording freaked me out. I was like, when? Like, when was it?
first set they'd ever beat against the Leviathans here if they get it in 2. So a lot to be able to push for. Dardes taking Eset over into the mid lane, something that I think we saw Shinto do last week.
That's fine. Nobody saw it.
And
Well, we saw it, but like it's okay.
Vote playing Artemis of all things.
Yeah, I'm gonna preface this entire set or this entire match cast 2 places. First, I am no longer a Cthulhu or Cthulhu guy. That's lame. It's Cthulhu. That's awesome.
Yeah.
That's woke. Secondly, I am concerned for this Oni
I
Warriors
was on
draft.
board, but you had to add the that's woke like that.
Dude, I mean, those other ones are just broke is all I'm saying.
Okay. All right.
And then I am concerned for this Oni Warriors draft because it is so slow. You've got the Artemis and Khepri, which is going to be a very low pressure lane. You've got good chain CC potential. So if they do, Neilma and Vote that is, pull a lead at any point, it's going to win super hard. Pulling that lead going to be very difficult. Dardes is going to be largely exposed in this lane. Eset, difficult to dive sometimes because of circle protection, but You're not able to channel the Wing Gust. If Panatom's around, if Shinto's getting the jump on you, you're generally losing out on that trade. And then once you get to the late game, which is the point of the game where the Oni Warriors want to play, there's going to be a Cthulhu, or a Cthulhu.
You're already trying to figure out which one you liked more. And you want Cthulhu, right?
Yeah, Cthulhu is good
just
stuff.
so we're on the same page.
Other
I'll
one's
try to
broke,
keep
that one's woke.
I think Cthulhu is okay.
Yeah, that was the one I was into before I found out about Cthulhu.
We'll see if anything ends up harming the Oni Warriors here super early on. You called it over here in the duo lane. Not a lot of work that Neil Ma and Vote are going to be able to get done, even against a Ganesh. This is not necessarily a very fast lane, but it's not that super fast. I mean, Cupid versus the Artemis here. And again, matchups that you can see some 1v1s in. That'll be interesting to watch how Vote takes that one. And we have 50 seconds left, keeping my eyes on those beads from Dardes before I think he feels fully safe again. I would love to hear his comm specifically when he hit that, because I bet he just kind of cursed and was like, well, so I don't have beads.
Well, we definitely saw him look at his keyboard, so, oh man, probably something like that, or
he meant to. He
my
was like, oh, I was
binds.
trying to just hit D, and I was too far over.
Well, I don't know what his binds are. What if it's like something wild? It's like on his numpad.
Yeah. Oh man.
Yeah, he's
That would
pulling a
be
real
wild.
shing.
We've definitely seen that in the past, so I can't even say, oh, who does that?
Yeah, it's shing.
We've seen it. Yeah.
Shouts Alex.
We'll see. Well, maybe that'll be something. If they win this and he feels real good about it, then maybe that's something that'll ever see the light of day. But for now, it is all coming to nothing because he's got his beats back. So he gets to finally be in this and I think maybe play away from the tower line slightly. I mean, that Morrigan matchup, maybe not the best clear. But realistically, Dardes has been sitting under that tower, and you had called it as the Warriors just slow all around. I mean, except for maybe the Artio, and that's a Guardian.
Oh, and the Gilgamesh.
You're not feeling too great about it.
Yeah, but Gilgamesh can get involved a little bit early on. Doug, now that we're level 4 for Dardes, can we see the level priority for him? I want to know if he's going for Spirit Ball or Wing Gust. It is actually the Wing Gust in that first slot. Sometimes we see the levels split up a bit.
Oh, here's a gank to the duo lane. Cubo is looking for a little more damage. Not enough to kill off Wrong You nor Zap. So he's going to have to walk away empty-handed. That purple buff not even respawning anytime soon. So there's nothing on this side of the map to go for.
Just a blink commitment from Cuvo Fred there, as well as the ultimate. So not massive. We'll see if Nika can walk himself out of there. That's Artio.
Man, yeah.
No bad matchups, and she has heals, and she resustains on wave, and she's got a dash, and a stun, and a cripple field. Pretty difficult to shut down that god, and well, Nika makes it look easy. He doesn't use any of the stuff that I just said. He simply
literally
walked
just
out.
nonchalantly walked away.
Yeah, he was done with it, and fair play to Nika.
And now, well, maybe even trying to control Panatom. Cuvo's here. Oh, but they're not looking to lock down the Kleena. Just looking to get their farm going on. 4 minutes, no first blood just yet, despite Cuvo's attempts at trying to bring that. Kleena, however, outside of that, I don't know if I want to call it a full gank. I guess it was technically still a gank onto Nika. Nothing big has happened. So Panatom and Cuvo maybe trying to get some work done, but unable to get it going. Items are relatively slow. I mean, Doom Orbs start going to be happening here for Shinto, which is maybe the big difference maker. A lot of power, movement speed early on, but if they don't fight, it's not going to make as big a difference.
Yeah, so it's more so about his ability to walk to Panatom's back camp. My bad. Shinto's back camps, take those, and then walk back to lane. That's what Doom Orb is going to help out with the Morgan, and also repositioning these team fights and closing gap onto these priority targets. I would say that the Oni Warriors, there's some nuance to the conversation about the pacing of this team composition. You've got a very slow duo lane. Neoma and Vote playing Artemis and Capri, going to take some time to hit their stride. But you've got a mid laner that wants to play around the duo lane constantly.
Zap pulled into a trap. There's going to be the lockdown.
Oof.
Tusky is not going to be able to follow through the dash from Zap into the jungle. And Zap's going to be able to get away from that one. A second attempt on his life. And he's still, well, not unscathed, but alive.
So as I was saying, the ESET wants to play around the duo lane because she's got the best objective secure in the game. Full stop. You drop it on the Gold Fury, all of a sudden your team's taking less damage, you're going to get a massive heal on the tail end, and it's one of the highest damage ultimates at level 1. At the majority of the game if you're going full damage scaling as well. So, forcing fights around the Gold Fury, generally the strategy. You really want to secure maybe 1 gold before like the 12-minute mark, 2 if you're really on a great pace. But that said, how often are you fighting around the duo lane where Zapman should be able to establish pressure once these supports and once these junglers stop ganking him? We've already seen 2 or 3 attempts on his life, as you said, and it is now reflected in the experience. Zapman a level down.
Cuvo, as well as a lot of the Warriors hanging around mid lane. And it's a fight over the mid camps. Offerings picked up by the Warriors. I'm going to pull on to Wrong U. That ends up turning into a root onto Neil Ma. Neil might be the one who gets consumed for first blood. Reses himself. Vote is here to try and play protector, but there's not much you can do. Panatom, first blood, 6.5 minutes into this game, and being able to take control of the duo lane.
Yeah, Neilma just on the wrong side of the tracks there, was completely separated from the entirety of his team as the Leviathans now getting aggressive in the jungle. Red buff is up, and they want these scrolls, or these flowers rather. Instead, they'll walk away with nothing for their troubles. Dardes connects some damage on a wrong Q. As he starts to move his way forward, Shinto, 2 levels up, is able to get the red buff for himself.
That is, confirmed there on U's low. Dharmic Pillars have been dropped. Cuvo has no mana to work with.
That was so
and they
sick.
have to fall back. Shinto goes in, and Dardes, Circle of Protection popped. Shinto a little further forward. If Cuvo has more mana, maybe something's able to happen there. But the Leviathans feels like get away with murder. More like just get away with just a red buff steal. They're able to get something out of that. Pull a lot of pressure onto the Warriors.
Wrong U plays that so well, Gore. Channels the silence, which gives you protections, walks his way out of there, immediately shifts it up. The second the protections run out, he shells himself and survives. I think if he even just presses an A key for a second, or if he's not looking the right direction, or if there's a microseconds difference, Wrong U would have died. That was mechanical mastery. He knew exactly what he was capable of.
Make sure to keep himself alive and keep going forward. The only kill is on to Neil Ma. That res still not available. Vote wants to kill Zap very badly. Has been trying at it. Zap gonna have to use more mana to heal up. That purple buff was secured for the Leviathans. And they're just playing bodyguard to make sure Zap can't pick it up. So that one's going to be a very slight difference in gold, and that is quite literally the first blood bounty. That is in favor of the Leviathans. And not much else. A little lead in mid. That's really what they have going for them here. Shinto is trying to get that farm game back under control. And that was the big deal. In game number 1, the Warriors were just insane with their farm compared to what we expected of the Leviathans usually. It was surprising to see the Warriors get up so far so quickly. And this time around, they're keeping it a lot closer.
Yeah, the Warriors were just killing a lot in game 1, and it's hard to farm when you're dead, and Leviathan spent a lot of time dead early on. You know, I don't think that I gave enough credit over to the Only Warriors duo lane because of the matchup between Zapman and Vote. It had slipped my mind entirely that Artemis had seen some buffs recently. Now Vengeful Assault, the second ability, the stim, has slow immunity on it, which means that Fields of Love, which previously in this matchup would have just been an ultimate trade every single time, Fields of Love for Tusky, it doesn't work that way anymore. It's Fields of Love for Artemis' second ability, and she's just able to walk out. So maybe you're able to establish a little bit more pressure. We've seen it already. The Vote has been getting a little bit of the better end of some of these engagements. But that said, Zapman has been legitimately sat on for the entirety of the early game, so we'll see what happens once they leave.
If he's not sat on, right?
Well, that's what he'd have you believe.
Yeah, well, yeah, that's his narrative. We get to determine whether or not it's true, although this game has been a little true. We'll see purple buff respawning. This is when Neil Vote been getting aggressive. Wrong use right here. It doesn't look like they're going to take the bait on this one. So he'll be able to actually secure this purple buff in his own favor. They're going to try to strip some of the neutral objective. Neutral objective has to be the conversation. You had mentioned Gold Fury earlier. E-Set makes that a heavy-handed favor for the Oni Warriors. Same thing for Pyromancers, things like that. Anything that you can drop that on and feel confident in becomes a big deal. We're hitting level 12 for mid laners, and soon enough it's going to be everybody else. So second relic's starting to come online. And that's going to be where, again, more pressure can be applied to some of these teams. Voidstone, super early on in the build here for Dardes. We might hold that thought, Nika. Being walked at and just walking away. There's the dash. So going to be able to self-peel enough to get away from that gank. How do you feel about this Void Stone pickup for Dardes?
Well, if Dardes is going to be in the face of everybody is
Oh, no.
what I would have said, but wrong use in some trouble here, so we got to talk about that. Pulled
Yeah.
back by the winds of Shamash, and Cuvo Fred will get credit for the kill, tying up the kill count. Only Warriors now notching 1 on their belt. So if you're going to channel Wing Gust consistently in some of these team fights, that means you're largely going to be point blank. It's very difficult to use that ability at max range. Why not benefit from the passive of Void Stone?
Oh, Nika rotates into the mid lane. Tries to get a stun onto Shinto, but isn't going to be able to connect it. Beads burned for the Morrigan. Panatom still aggressive. Cuvo not going to fully
Nice
connect.
shots.
Stun from Dardes is on point, though. Panatom into the wall. Is going to get kicked out at some point. Has to figure out where to go. Neil is waiting. Neil's not going to turn. Instead, it's eyes on the Gold Fury for the Warriors. Circle of Protection is up, and they shouldn't have much to worry about here. Nika going for a deep, deep zone. Is able to create a lot of space. Again, maybe unnecessary. They're going to pop that and pick it up. Pyromancer started by the Leviathans in retaliation, and it's going to help them maintain some of their lead, but that's assuming they get it. Nika's rotating over, coming around the corner. Should be able to see this and notices that they dropped it. So he's going to be more than happy to go back to his lane, keep his team in a comfy spot.
Even in spite of the Gold Fury going down, the Oni Warriors really just do bring that game back to even. The Leviathans doing a much better job in Game 2 of just farming up on the map. But now, desynced neutral objectives means that the team with superior conformations can start to look over towards this Pyromancer. The Leviathans would love to limit that potential. Dardes nearly has not gone back to base and does not have the ultimate. Pyro dropped low.
It's going to be about 1/3 HP right now, dropped by the Leviathans, and the Warriors aren't looking for it just yet. Dardes doesn't have a lot of mana to work with. Both relics available. Trying to back in the jungle. Will be able to get away. Panatom, I think, was looking for the stop, but didn't quite find it. Got a good ward placement, though. Now it's going to go back to square one. 2 kills, Mifflin, 13 minutes in. And you had just called it, but virtually even in terms of gold experience. Different story. 3K in favor of the Leviathans. You can see it a lot in mid and the carry with the 1-level lead. But you have to assume some of that, either is in the jungle or in the solo lane where there's just a smidge of a lead.
Yeah, exact parity, by the way. It's both junglers have 1 kill and both supports are that kill, have fallen once each. Oni Warriors approach the Pyromancer yet again. Dardes ultimate available, but maybe not necessary, as they are able to secure that one for themselves. Thought maybe we'd see a little bit more from Shinto there. Transformation was available, but goes unused this time around. The Oni Warriors pick up both of the first neutral objectives this time. But the gold is 600, 500. That's nothing.
Yeah, easy to ignore. Here's going to be the trade out. Beads for ult. Vote, though, in a little bit of trouble. Shinto coming around the back of the tower is going to get spotted out here. There's the transformation. Winds of Shamash drop down. There's going to be a drop kick stun, and Vote's taking a lot of damage. Gets some in retaliation. Hasn't died yet, finally. Zapman's going to be able to find it, and they get the tier 1 to boot. So a big kill and a big play for the Leviathans.
Yeah, Zapman spends the entire time that Shinto was actually fighting Vote, clearing out that tower. Once the tower falls down, nothing left to block those auto attacks. Easy kill secured there. The Oni Warriors should be able to find a response on the map. Tier 1 tower in mid has been left exposed and alone. Yarkor starts his rotation, but a little bit too slow. Blink forward, though. Maybe he's able to catch him out.
Yeah, he's going to try to keep Dardes in this Descent into Madness thrown out. There's a knock up, and there's
Good
the Dharmic
Aegis.
Pillars. Aegis continues. Dardes' life circle of protection thrown out. It's not charging too much. Going to be able to heal back to full. It's going to be the 5-on-5 running it through Zap. The only one missing right now. That's the Warriors still trying to aggress. There's a stun onto Hardcore Beads. Gonna get forced out. The damage almost there. Winds of Shamash thrown out, and Shinto is the target for Cuvo. Fred not able to find it. Hardcore gets out of there. Panatom cannot say the same. Taken down and just shy there on Dardes' Spirit Ball to be able to pick up another kill. And they're not done. There's the res thrown out onto Neil. Nika is going to have it procced here.
He's
now
back.
You've got more health and ready to go. They're gonna dash back. This tier 2 maybe affording too much damage towards the Leviathans.
Shinto low, as is Rongyu. Yarkor, no ultimate available, but the Oni Warriors don't want to stick around this time. Vote had finally rejoined the fight, still had the Caledonian Boar available, but still not enough to tip the scales in favor of the Oni Warriors. That said, the Leviathans yet again overextend on another one of their retaliation rounds. It's Yarkor this time, who bites off a little bit more than he could chew, blinks forward, tries to isolate Dardes. Dardes, with phenomenal relic usage, was able to go back to his tower, drop circle protection. Maybe a little bit overzealous in that there wasn't much dive left in the tank for the Leviathans, but at least able to resustain himself and then surge back forward. Panatom left high and dry, and the Oni Warriors take that one for themselves. 2-2 reads the slash line. Gold still about even. Experience slightly favoring the Leviathans.
Still a comfortable, like you said, experience lead, which you would think would translate maybe into a little bit more. It's 2 levels for Zapman. Kind of surprising to see how much control he's gotten in the duo lane. And that has led to maybe the only gold lead, I think, in terms of where the Leviathans have that amount of control. The rest of it, all here for the Warriors. Vote just backed up. Should be getting that win team. And you had mentioned it actually last game. That is a big power spike going from that tier 2 to tier 3, getting a lot more stats from the Wind Demon.
Yeah, most crit, literally every crit item, by the way, is so bad until you finish it.
Yeah.
There was a nerf pass, essentially, for Hunters, I believe towards the tail end of Season 8, where it used to be like Hidden Dagger had like 5% crit or something on it, and then Short Sword had like 10%. And it felt really bad to get crit by somebody who only had like a 2% and you lose a fight for it. So instead, have to finish those items, which means that it is just such a slow build to look towards.
Ooh, Cuvo. Stun on a Panatom. Don't think a lot is going to come from this. Solo laners still just boxing each other. They've just moved it much further left than usual into the mid lane. Primal Fury spawned up. Dardes, worth mentioning, Circle Protection is available and something that you can secure pretty easily. I think the desk mentioned it. I know you mentioned it. Shinto can transform into that E-set, though, and just drop their own Circle of Protection if he thinks he can out-confirm it.
Yeah, it could be, but you still have to charge it up. So using Circle Protection as a steal tool, pretty difficult.
Great, yeah.
If you can get in there, it's a great way to make somebody leave an objective. You drop a Circle Protection at 50% when the other one's already dropped. That's a true coin toss.
Ooh, what a combo of stuns. Dardes, Spirit Ball into Cuvo, dropkick. Good luck trying to respond to that. Beads do come through from Shinto, and it does not matter. Damage is there for the Warriors, and they're trying to take this lead and push it as far as they can. Falling back in the jungle, this looks like a Primal Fury start.
Yeah, the Oni Warriors are just playing different today. Nika has got 2 on his tail, but he's just distracting the Leviathans, where the true brunt of effort is going is towards this Primal Fury. That's going to go over to the Oni Warriors with 0 opposition. It's going to take a little while, but that gold will go their way. The ability to go towards Pyromancer and Fire Giant and take less damage from those is going to go their way as well. And as we're rapidly approaching the 20-minute mark, that Primal Fury passive is becoming very, very impactful. The Oni Warriors are just playing the map incredibly well. They're finding picks, they're getting these high priority targets, they're setting up, and they've got a good composition to leverage the lead. If Dardes can drop a Circle Protection in the next 2-3 minutes on this Fire Giant, the Leviathan's going to be hard-pressed to fight into it.
That's the combo, right? The Primal Fury plus the Circle Protection plus the lead they've already picked up.
Yeah, it's gross.
It's not a massive lead by any means for the Oni Warriors. But if they get a Fire Giant with this small lead, then it becomes a massive lead for them. 19 minutes into the game, Mifflin 5 kills on the board. The same amount of towers that have been knocked down. Tier 1 in left for Tier 1 in mid for the Warriors and then the Leviathans respectively.
You don't often see this, the experience gold split. Generally, if you've got one, you've got the other. Or if you've got one, you're only barely missing out on the other. But this is a clear distinction in the game. The Oni Warriors taking gold objectives more often, whereas the Leviathans have been getting the neutral farm more often.
It's making some interesting separation, mainly in mid as well as carries. I think Zap, a level and a half ahead of where Vote is. A level there for Shinto. And then a couple levels there, about a level and a half for Wrong Yu, which mattered a lot at 12. Doesn't matter as much now since they both have their second relics. Will matter again at 17 if they're able to get there. We're looking at it for the Warriors. Again, their first win against the Leviathans as a team was game number 1 this set. We'll see, again, if they can get a full set, Mifflin, off of the reigning world champs here. Be an interesting way to start the phase. I mean, this is your 7th place team essentially going up against the number 1 from last year, and they're looking damn fine at it.
They are. Panatom's closed gap puts a little bit of damage into Cuvo Fred, but it's more so a deterrent to make sure that the Oni Warriors show some respect around the Pyromancer. Slows them down for the barest of moments as Neomall repulls it.
They're going to be half health on the Pyromancer, leashed. Will the Warriors pick it up? Yes, and they have a lot of burn. Leviathans managed to get it, though, right over the wall. I believe Cuvo credit for that one. Either way, it doesn't really matter. They strip it, I guess, away from the Leviathans, who are trying to strip it away from the Warriors, so they kind of earn it themselves. No matter what, it gives them a little
Leviathans
bit
got
of
that.
gold. So it just popped up wrong.
Did it pop up?
Did it say? Yeah, I thought I saw
Well,
the
well.
Oni Warriors. No, I misread it, and it's definitely Leviathans. You're right.
Yeah, the Leviathans
Look at the gold.
pick up the
Hey,
objective.
Thanks for the save, man.
Easy
Dude,
life
I don't know what
for
my
the
brain's
Levi's.
on this set, but it is not on like fully. It's not on 100.
It's you got to be thinking at 100 to follow these players too. The Leviathans and the Oni Warriors
Jeez.
keeping you on your toes. That was close though. You're right that there was a lot of steal potential there from both these teams. Kinetic energy versus potential
Yeah.
energy. A conversation.
I'm
that
living exclusively in potential, apparently.
Imagine one day you are going to convert to kinetic.
I see every parallel timeline, but not the actual.
That sounds hellish, honestly.
That would be awful, right?
That-
It's like how a fly sees.
Is that true?
Have you know,
They
like
see
the
other
vision?
timelines?
Well, they don't see not other timelines, but like the multi-lens is how I have to imagine that. Right?
I don't know, man. Flies are gross. I don't like to think about them.
What am I supposed to do with that?
I don't know. Cast a
Yeah,
fight.
they're what fight, man? There
It'll
hasn't
happen
been any.
eventually. Just keep
Yeah.
casting until a fight happens.
Just exclusively, you want to leave? You want to leave me alone here after the day, or not the day, this set I've been having? I think that's a bad idea. Either way, we'll figure out whether or not they can feel confident for the Warriors here in terms of getting aggressive on this Fire Giant. I think that's what we highlighted. Gold Fury's going to come back before too long, and at that point, maybe the Leviathans will be able to pick that up, make this game pretty much even for themselves. Maybe the Warriors will be able to pick that up and find some of that gold back in their favor.
Gold is a non-factor right now,
Really?
Gore. I mean, like, it's a
Oh, yeah, I
thousand.
guess they've hit. Oh, you mean in general, like
Yeah,
where it is.
we're not caring about gold. When it's this close, the next team fight's what wins you the game.
And it might be right here. Huvo taking down just a little bit of health. Does leap away. Panatom's in the wall. And if they come out on the wrong side, it
Good
could
poke.
be troublesome. Does come out aggressively towards the Warriors. Nika separated from the rest of the group. Hardcore sees it. They're going to decide to go onto the solo lane, or at least two of them are going to go this way towards the mid lane. Doesn't seem like a lot of potential for the Leviathans to try and kill just Nika just yet. We're starting to see level 20s come online, Mifflin. You had said this, I think, earlier today, but 5th item finished for a majority of the Warriors, so realistically, a lot of the power spikes that are going to exist are here now.
Yeah, just about. We might see like a Ratatouille for Dardes pretty soon. Has the potential to upgrade that Eye of the Jungle as well.
Yeah.
Relic's starting to be looked at now by these supports. Greater Shell for Rong Yu, and we got the Belt of the Berserker for Neoma on the other end. Every single relic still available to both of these teams, as are the ultimates. Gold is not separated whatsoever. Experience, maybe slight separations. I take it back. Everyone that matters is level 20, and the supports are 16 to 15. One skirmish could completely open up this game. Even the map state is essentially even. There's a quarter HP tier 1 mid tower for the Oni Warriors that the Leviathans have not got for themselves. Otherwise, it is the exact same across the board. This is a tight match. We have not seen Cthulhu. That has not happened a single time. I couldn't tell you how many times Shinto has transformed this game full stop. I think the Oni Warriors and the Leviathans just biding their time.
I want to say one. I'm not sure if I've seen it more than one. I know I did see it at least the once.
Who did he turn into?
That I definitely can't answer for you because I don't remember it. It was ages ago, and it hasn't been incredibly impactful for them. Teams going for the neutral farm, the safe farm as of right now on both sides. And you had mentioned it, but 1,000 gold, 24 minutes in, means pretty much nothing. 4,000 experience, which
That experience
again,
is growing.
it's going to mean a little bit more maybe in favor, I think, of the supports right now.
Only the supports.
And yeah, everybody else has hit 20, so it's just that 16 essentially between 15
Of that
Neil.
4K, 500 of it is probably Wrong You. So it's an effective like 500, maybe 600 gold difference or experience difference between these two teams. Effective 1,000 gold, I suppose, would like split that 5 ways. That's a ward in everybody's pocket, a 1 sentry ward for
Spot on.
everybody.
It's exactly, well, not exactly, but it's 500.
Yeah, man, I used to play this game professionally. I could just eyeball that. That wasn't a guesstimation, right? I just know, all right? That's what I bring.
It's just, you know what? And I appreciate that, whether guesstimate or not. I could see you pulled out the protractor, the compass, everything. You managed to nail that one.
How did that help me?
spot
I have
on.
no idea.
Yeah, that's what I was saying. I didn't know. I didn't understand it, but it worked out. Zapman
Uh-oh,
stunned
uh-oh.
out, and now chased down by Nika, looking for
Good
the
stun.
aggression. There's going to be another stun on him. Winds of Shemesh get dropped, and it's separating the fight from the Leviathans, but they all fall back. The Warriors turn their eyes back towards the FG pit. They are going for the larger buff. Started up, not actually dealing the damage. Instead, the pull is onto Hardcore. The beads get used in retaliation. Zapman is the primary target, but we've seen this go wrong before, and it's going to be Cthulhu. And let's go ahead and call it Cthulhu because they're coming in. There's the res on Devote. Dardez is low, and Dardez is gone. The Leviathans ready to continue running forward.
Have they been
Nika
hit?
just slamming it down, and look at Hardcore's health bar. I don't think he got touched, and if he did, well, then it didn't mean much. They kill off 3. A drop kick from Cuvo peels for himself, and Vote, rezzed during that fight, manages to get out. But with Shinto and Hardcore chasing, Cuvo has no chance to get back to that FG pit, so Leviathans get themselves the big objective.
Cuvo Fred taking some very strange pathing through the jungle. When he juked backwards towards Shinto, I thought that was the end of his life. Had he just kept walking forward, would have just got out of range. Instead, passed himself into the jungle and give Shinto another attempt, another pass at trying to finish off that kill. Zapman should get credit for the Fire Giant shortly, as nobody from the Oni Warriors is around. And this is exactly what I was talking about a moment ago. And when the game is as even as it is, at the 22 to 25 minute mark, one team fight is going to be the great separator. It puts Fire Giant on 4 members of the Leviathans, and now they can start up their siege. Want to see more Cthulhu.
Yeah,
that seemed
it
like
was
it
good.
worked. Both Yarkor and Shinto go untouched in the Descent into Madness. Zapman just heals up the entirety of that team fight, and the only one who trades out their life is Panatom, and it's because he wasn't with his Cthulhu. He just go to your Cthulhu, man.
Cthulhu is safe. Cthulhu is home. Say your mantra, Panatom. Remember. Keep yourself in the game. Hey, well, they're going to get themselves a Fire Giant. They're going to get a Pyromancer. Hell, there's a Gold Fury if they really want it to try and push this as much as they can.
I bet they want it.
And it seems like they do want to pick this one up. Vision for the Warriors, so they're going to just have to watch as this happens through the walls. And that is going to be a hefty, hefty swing. I mean, you had mentioned it, and we had called it 1,000 gold that had been in favor of the Warriors that meant virtually nothing. Now, several thousand, let's call it 4K.
Cool spike there.
That is just all in favor of the Leviathans. Of course, all that experience, you can see 2 levels now, specifically between Rong Hu and Neil Ma. And that's going to be able to create some gaps for them. The Warriors pushing up on right lane, despite the Leviathans grouping on left, hoping to get their back off before anything can happen. You can already see Dardez trying to return to base, go for the defense.
We will, and here's the thing about ESET, as all unorthodox mages are, a little bit weak on base defense situations. Circle protection, okay, but it's pretty easy to avoid standing in it and also hit a Phoenix, so keep your eyes on this ESET. If Dardez finds value, he did so against the odds. Whereas the Leviathans draft, by nature of the Morgan, unorthodox in defense, so you're probably a little bit weaker, but because you have a Cthulhu on your team, very strong in siege potential, just create a ton of space and allow some of these damage dealers to close gap onto the birds themselves. As of now, though, it won't be that 5-on-5, and your Cthulhus won't be together until Shinto works his way over to the left-hand side of the map. Panatom, acting as solo agent towards the center, will line up against Cubo Fred.
Panatom,
That's
Cubo,
dangerous.
Shinto. This is definitely a dangerous game to be playing. Cubo's going to go for the speed buff.
What a jungler.
This tier 2 in mid, yeah, it's going to fall down. There's no defending that one. Good Spirit Ball onto Zap. It's a little bit of damage. He's going to be not necessarily too worse off because of it. Panatom in the wall one more time. Looking for damage, zone, whatever he can find. While taking a little bit of damage in the process. Phoenixes are the name of the game for the Leviathans. It's just breaking into this base that feels too complicated.
It's going to be difficult, especially now that Panatom has lost out on both charges of Pierce the Veil. That is one of his few ways to get involved in these siege scenarios. It's one of his few ways to deal range damage without having to commit his body to the cause. So it might be a little bit until they engage, or maybe it's just now.
There's the Dharmic Pillars. There's Hardcore up into the Descent into Madness, and they're going to go for a little bit. Good stuns from Vote.
4-man.
Thrown out. Now they're going to continue this fight. Damage onto Hardcore is looking decent, but not good enough. The Phoenix still fine and healthy. The Warriors are pushing them back. Nika slowly moving forward to the back line, trying to figure out where to get these stuns. Crits ringing true onto the health bar. seems to be enough to find the stun, the displacement. There's going to be a circle of protection, and it's not going to do enough of healing. Instead, it's separation. Huvo a little too deep, jumps back. Phoenix line is where the Warriors want to play, and it's going to be an opening for the Leviathans to move forward. Shinto as Cthulhu going to get some knockups in the back line. Damage back and forth, Mythlin, but it seems like Panatom might be the first to fall. Mika chases it up to the wall. All you need is a couple more hits, and there it is, the first kill of the fight. The Phoenix does go down for the Leviathans. That man stunned. The dash is going to be good. Still has his Aegis and is going to be able to survive this one. Hardcore might not be able to say the same. Wants to get a kill onto Neil. Won't be able to find it. So it's 2 for the bird.
2 for Phoenix trade. The Oni Warriors, though, that is a late timing for the Phoenix to have fallen down. Actually goes down after the Fire Giant buff wears off of the Leviathans, which is the worst case scenario for the Oni Warriors. Means that that bird's going to spend a lot of time in the hypothetical grayscale. I don't know what NPCs are, where they go when they die, but it'll come back eventually.
That's a weird philosophical question.
Yeah, existential.
Where do the Phoenixes go when they die?
I have no clue, but I'll
Into
tell you
the
this. It's going to be dead for a while, especially the entire duration of this next Fire Giant dance, which means the Leviathans will have the highest value Phoenix down on the Oni Warriors, while they get to look towards the enhanced Fire Giant as we have ticked past that 30-minute mark, meaning that whichever team picks this one up will not have to concern themselves with backdoor protections. Oni Warriors, though, they show up to the Fire Giant first. 5 seconds left on Yorkor's respawn, and no teleport means it's going to be a while till he gets here.
Yeah, they're going to be able to start this one up. Circle protection is there for Dardas. Shinto has a transformation, but you had mentioned steal potential, maybe not there with that. Confirmed potential will be. Dharmic Pillars dropped early. Circle protection charged up. Warriors going to get the Fire Giant.
Healthy.
And now they're starting to move forward. Nika is a little low, but it doesn't matter. They pull Zap,
Zap!
and they're going to just delete him from the map. Panatom Shinto separated from the team. Hardcore's back, and Hardcore's in his ult, but it is trying to run away instead of re-engage. Huvo jumps in,
This is
and they're
big.
looking to burn down the solo laner. The damage is there. The knockups only slowing down the inevitable, and Hardcore gets burned.
This could very well be game, Gore. 60 seconds left on Yorkor. 40 seconds left on Zapman. Sure, your Titan's taking some damage. It's
Panatom.
slow. Panatom, can he do it on his own?
This is going to be a little bit of a base race. How many fire minions will be in there for the jungler as he runs
He's there.
in there to try and deal the
50%.
damage? It's going to be at half health. The Titans
he's
are
got it.
walking in, the Warriors walking in, and he's got plenty of damage. They need to get active, and they need to get it now. They're not going to be able to do so. Panatom wins the game for the Leviathans despite a catastrophic fight.
That has got to be crushing on the heart of the Oni Warriors from the brink, able to take away the Enhanced Fire Giant and one of their first team fight wins in that match, immediately squashed by Panatom just walking up to your Titan. That is tough. Legitimately, had Panatom gone back to base, I don't think there's any chance we're talking about a Leviathan's defense. That would have been a clean fight for the Oni Warriors. That was the singular, only, it's the only one they had, the only winning line for the Leviathans, and Panatom takes it.
And you can see in their booth, they're not looking too happy necessarily. That's how they had to get their win.
Win's a
Feeling
win, a
maybe
win.
A little uncomfortable for it. A win's a win's a win.
That's facts.
They do push us to game number 3, but they definitely would rather keep it a lot cleaner and in their favor this time around
Dude, I can't imagine.
compared to
I'd
the
be
Warriors.
so
I guess
tilted.
it was in their favor for a majority of it.
be
Finally,
so
that
tilted.
ends up taken away. And they were in the Titan room, man. Oh, the Warriors maybe going to need a mental reset. I think I need a mental reset just with the way things have been going. But this is going to be a fun one. I mean, you get a good performance out of the Warriors, despite the fact that it is still a loss at the end of the day. I'm excited to see what they have to offer in Game 3.
Me too, man. This is a different version of the Oni Warriors. Even from what we just saw earlier this week, this is a much more focused team. The fights have been looking better. The objectives have been looking better. Maybe it's because the Leviathans are willing to play the Oni Warriors' pace, but regardless, I mean, it's like the 7th seed essentially versus the world champions.
Yeah.
And it's still close.
Well, I'm going to go hit the reset button on my brain. You guys take this quick break. We'll be right back with game number 3.
close-knit and back-and-forth game here in game number 2 between the Leviathans and the Oni Warriors. The Oni Warriors put up a solid defense at their left side Phoenix to push the Leviathans back, then won a big team fight over around the Fire Giant, and then the Warriors started marching up that right side lane to end the game. And we would be moving on with the rest of the day and closing this out if it weren't for the fact that one lone Panatom thwarted all of that with a backdoor to take the game away from the Warriors.
Yeah, J-Mac, we finally got an answer to the question. Who would win, 5 Oni Warriors or one spooky girl? And the answer is going to be the spooky girl.
I don't know why that one got me. I don't know why that one got me as much as it did, Trelly. And the worst part is I knew you were going to go with it, and it still caught me off guard here. But Oni Warriors do get thwarted by a single spoopy girl here on this side. Panatom with the back door to end the game and take this one away and bring the Leviathans now to a game 3.
Yeah, as we mentioned a little bit before, because of the way that Vote optimized his build there, went for mostly crit, not that chin size that we see. It took them so long, even 5 strong, to take down this Descent into Madness Cthulhu. And at that point, Panatom was like, hey, they're taking a long time to kill you. I can just make this trek towards the base. And of course, then we all saw what happened there, was able to end the game. But I don't think, number one, the Leviathans are going to be even happy with that win. Of course, a win's a win, but almost throwing the game, it was pretty much over, and they had the lead. They had the Fire Giant push, so I don't think if you're either team right now, you're happy with how that game went.
No, I mean, the Warriors had some solid team fighting, some big defenses. This fight right here was a masterful showcase of just how strong the double Cthulhu composition really can be. Couple that with the fact that Cupid was there, keeping them sustained up here, and then we get a nice little look from Panatom as he goes to end out this game, taking this one away from the Warriors and went to Leviathans. But even looking at the player cams at the very end of that one, Panatom, he got that rush in, he got that win, he stood up, he had his little moment, and all the rest of the Leviathans were still sitting back. Wasn't really a smile on any of their faces. No, and really nobody across this board too happy with that win.
Right, and again, the Leviathans obviously had the Fire Giant. They pushed down left side Phoenix, and then they sort of lost that siege and had to run all the way back. And then at that point, they had the other firefight, and then they lost that just outright. It was a 5v, not a lot. It was 5v2, 5v3. It didn't really matter at that point. They were going for the end. They had advanced Fire Giant, and then, of course, Panatom's able to get the Titan down before. But at that point, you pretty much lost the game. So, yeah, they're not happy with it. They got the credit for the win, but at this point, you got to go back to the drawing board because their team fight did not work out. And that's really why we saw those looks on their faces, because you want an outright win. So you don't want one where there was ever a question whether you could perform or not.
Yeah, you never want to leave any kind of doubts in your mind, in the fans' mind, or anybody else out here like that. So Leviathans, they do push us now into game number 3 of the Oni Warriors. Had the control, at least at the latter half of those last couple of team fights around that left side Phoenix of their own side of the base, and then obviously pushing up over towards that Fire Giant to the right side. So Oni Warriors, they can probably still be a little upset about the loss there. They're probably not too happy that they lost the game at the end there, but can still probably at least be proud of the ways that they made it towards that end game on those defenses.
Right. I mean, their late game team fight, that's really where they were able to shine there, which is surprising because against the Leviathan, that's usually what we like to hype up. The fact that they may go down a little bit in the early game, but their macro play, their ability to stay even or just a little bit behind, doesn't really matter once you get to these late game 5v5 fights where they shine. And this time, it seemed like the Oni Warriors had that on lock. I mean, the circle of protection, obviously to confirm that EFG, just turned into a huge dub for them. But again, weren't able to close that one out.
And objective confirmation has kind of always been a hot topic, at least amongst when it comes to the drafts, whether your team is really good at burning it down. Do you have the highest damaging ability in the map here to be able to secure those objectives? Having that E set does give you that big benefit. Circle protection, as always talked about, is one of the best, if not the best, secure in the entire game on these objectives here. And we'll see if that E-set does make it through picks and bans yet again. We'll see if the E-set even makes it into game number 3, whether it be Dardas wanting to even play it, if Shinto wants to take that one away, because talking with the Leviathans earlier on in the week, Shinto really seems to admire that pick.
Yeah, I mean, with what it brings, as you just mentioned, the fact that it has pretty early on pressure, right? You're not getting out pressure at level 1 unless you can somehow stun out Wind Gust. And then late game, you just have this huge confirmation tool, big heal. You can drop it down even on Phoenix Sieges, things like that, where you're just having this big saying, no one can touch me in here. This is a huge zone where I don't want anyone diving. And so that's always going to be a little bit valued at the moment, even in the support role, as we've seen time and time again. So it really just depends on which one of these teams is going to let it through, if either of them are going to let it through. But that's sort of the difficult option here because, again, if you are the Oni Warriors, you got to be happy with how the late game went until the end, the throw there at the end. And then I wouldn't even call it a throw, just something you weren't planning for. And then you aren't happy with how the early game went. So neither team right now, both of them probably thinking a lot about this draft, right? I mean, I imagine this picks and bans is going to take a bit just for them to go through the mental gymnastics of trying to figure out what went wrong for both of them.
Yeah, both these teams really just kind of hitting their reset button here, wondering what they can do to improve each stage of the game in order to try and bring themselves a cleaner win here in game number 3. We'll see what makes it into the third game here as we jump right into the picks and bans between the Atlantis Leviathans and the Oni Warriors. Our final set of the day goes all the way to its third game. Leviathans are still going to stick with their guns, though. After that first game blunder up against the Oni Warriors, the Leviathans will continue to keep that focus on some of those bigger carries. Amuz and Cobb, namely the first one taken away.
Yeah, AMC, just a lot of pressure out of that mid lane, not wanting to deal with that. Looks like these bans, contrary to what I said, are just flying through at the moment. We're going to see the Kabrakan as well, taking away just so much extra pressure. Obviously, the Zeus and the Yemoja, pretty staple picks right now for any team right now, but specifically the Leviathans, obviously wrong you, probably arguably the best Yemoja in the league, just so much displacement, not wanting to deal with the healing, and the Walls from River's Rebuke, and then Zeus, just a very solid AoE team fight mage that can honestly be very safe right now, surprisingly, given the lack of mobility in the kit.
Yeah, especially when you're in that second pick slot, you never just want to give that Zeus over to the enemy team, so no surprise seeing the Oni Warriors take that one away. Leviathans are still waiting for their third ban. Up here, I believe last time it was the Erlong Shen. That forced the Oni Warriors to make a decision if they wanted to ban away the Gilgamesh or not. The Oni Warriors didn't. Actually, no, it was a Kamazotz that would force the question of if it was going to be the Erlong Shen or the Gilgamesh. So it'll be met one more time here. Leviathans banning away the Kamazotz. You're the Oni Warriors now, and you're looking at what the Leviathans did last game. Are you banning the Kleena just so you don't deal with that nonsense again?
I was going to say, I mean, all things considered, they were able to win the team fight. Yeah, so I don't think you have to ban the Kleena away. You dealt with it. You ended up, again, winning that team fight. So the Oni Warriors, I don't really think they're worried about the Kleena. As long as they don't have a Phoenix down, there's no real reason that they do throw that away. But this time, looks to be the Ardio that made it all the way through, giving the Kleena up to the Oni Warriors. I gotta say, I'm a little surprised here that the Leviathans don't just insta-lock that.
I'm a little less shocked the fact that it's Ardio over for the Leviathans given up
course.
there. I mean, Yarkor, World's MVP on this god in particular, between that and the Kamazotz. So no surprise seeing that if they give up Kleena, that this is the god they do it for here. The Oni Warriors will respond. They'll take Kleena away, and they'll take the Morgan away. So originally what was maybe waiting to see what Dardas wanted to go with, kind of holding out on a pick, the Oni Warriors are going to jump the gun very early, picking up this Assassin and Mage.
Yeah, and it looks like the counter is going to be Gilgamesh. Panatom, no stranger to the pick, obviously, by now. Just wanting to get that early pressure jungle. Obviously, Gilgamesh just has a strong late game as well. I mean, there's never really a time where Gilgamesh is going to fall off here, so running that one back as well. And then Zap's going to get himself a Medusa. So looking at the Morgan transformations at the moment, just looking at the Winds of Samash and a possible Kleena if you want to have even more ultimates. And ooh, this is an interesting one. The Daji here, that's going to be 2 Palos? That's going to be very interesting because obviously right now Gilgamesh have no form of CC immunity. Ardio, no form of CC immunity. Going to need either Beads or a Magi's Blessing. So double Daji, that's going to be very difficult to deal with for the Leviathans.
Yeah, Oni Warriors draft up their front line here with a Kleena, at least to say the very least. And then they got some of this back line now with the Morgan and Daji jumping in. So the option now goes back over to the Leviathans as far as their bans are concerned. Now that we see this Daji and this Kleena, we know that one is going to solo, that probably being the Kleena here, Daji going towards the jungle. Now is the dual lane focus time. If you're Leviathans going up against Neil, do you ban more of Neil's gods, maybe take away that Bacchus that he had over in game 1?
Well, every time we see this Medusa come out, usually the CERN seems to be the counter issue. So it looks like CERN is going to be taken away here. I wouldn't be surprised if we don't see any sort of like Bacchus ban, because again, you can just pull that back in with the Powwow. So Kepri and Geb both having cleanses with the Stone Shield and the Scarab's Blessing, so not wanting to get the Powwow canceled out there. I think those are both smart bans in that regard. So looks like the Leviathans are not going to really care about that. I mean, they just want to try to draft. They already see the Daji. It's not going to be a surprise at this point, so they can sort of draft around that. Obviously, Tiamat still available. That comes to mind for the mid lane. Shinto very strong on that pick, obviously. Even Hell, we haven't seen too much Hell recently, but the cleanse is there. I suppose that could be, something if you want to look towards that. And then, obviously, right now, still hovering on that Rongu pick.
Yeah, right now, Oni Warriors have the option. Geb, Kepri, Bacchus, and Cernanos all banned away in the second round. So Leviathan's still a little worried about what Neil is able to do on that god, so they'll make sure that he doesn't have the option to use it there. Meanwhile, Oni Warriors focusing their bans over towards Rongyu, and rightfully so, with their third one now, including that Yamoja earlier on. The Oni Warriors have a little bit of time to think here. They still need their front line. They still need their dual lanes. So they need to get either their carry or their support here. Charlie, is there any kind of preference? Now that we see the CERN and the Medusa go down, are there any hunters that stick out to you for the Oni Warriors to pick up here?
I really wasn't hating Vote on the Artemis. Obviously, he had top damage throughout the game, but opting to go into that crit build specifically, just into the Cthulhu, obviously the burn just wasn't there. This time around, though, gonna give the Morgan a great global presence here. Whenever I see Chernobog in the Morgan, that's what I always imagine. If you ever do see someone split pushing, you can just go into that nightmare across the map, and now you have to deal with two people you didn't expect. So obviously, Chernobog a little slow in the early game, though. Doesn't really ever win a 1v1 trade against the Medusa. You're more so picking this for late game hard carry potential. Someone goes over to stop you split pushing, then you can join the fight from across the map. And it looks like the Hell is actually going to be the answer to the double powwow. I'm going to be honest, I said it because it was like a good option, but we haven't seen too much Hell.
No, Hell has kind of fallen out of the meta here, especially with that double flat pen meta. Divine Ruin was one of the big things that really feels like it shut that god down. But nice on you, Charlie, for bringing the Hell shout out here. It'll be that with a Horus on the side of the Leviathans. And now it comes down to Neil. And what god does Neil Ma want to play on the side of the Oni Warriors? The quick answer to that one is going to be the Ganesh. So now that we've seen what these Oni Warriors have drafted up here against the Leviathans, this is a very tanky front line for the Leviathans. And not so much on the side of the Warriors, though.
Yeah, right now I'm seeing a lot of dive, obviously, with the Kleena and the Morgan just wanting to go in consistently. But Kleena also can sort of sit back and go for some poke as well. It's a very difficult play style because Kleena sort of plays like no character we've seen in Smite before, right? Where she can hide in the walls and sort of wait out things like that. But right now, I'm imagining their re-engage. The Oni Warriors is going to be pretty solid. If you do get some good poke, Chernobog backs, then ults back in. That's going to be pretty solid as well. Their chase potential with the Nightmare is going to be pretty solid as well. So looking at the comps right now, it's just going to be difficult to focus around this Hell and Horus healing. They're going to have a lot of sustain. You're going to have to deal with these prolonged fights are not going to be in your benefit.
In this mid 2v2, we're looking at the Morgan Daji versus Hell Gilgamesh. I mean, to me, Hell is not the epitome of mid lane pressure out here. She can be annoying to deal with, but certainly not one that's going to maybe bring a whole lot of threat out here. For the Oni Warriors is the mid where they want to try and get their focus out, especially going up against something like a Hell.
Anytime I see Daji into Hell, I imagine it's going to be, because it's, again, you counter the powwow with the cleanse, but that's not really what's going to be killing you. It's going to be the 1,000 cuts, the damage, and the slows, that sort of thing. Hell can be stuck to very easily by this Daji, especially now that there's going to be possibly 2 Dajis, as Jithans rushes us into the camera there. So the Morgan into Daji as well as another Daji, it's going to be very difficult to live if you are Hell there. You're going to need a lot of peel.
Yeah, and probably a lot of anti-heal on the side of the Warriors, too. I mean, well, we've seen that almost no matter how many anti-heal items you build up against this god, somehow Hell still seems to squeak through and get lots of healing, lots of damage through. But Trelly, it seems to me that the Oni Warriors do have quite a bit of ways of being able to apply that anti-heal out here. Lots of application with that via things like Divine Ruin, maybe get some of that Brawler's Beat Stick out of here at the Daji. So for the Leviathans, what is their time frame for them to be able to find that win out here?
I would say right now both of these comps don't really have an end-all, be-all, better late game here. Both of these comps are pretty well-rounded, but anytime I see the Morgan, for me that's just this pick comes online with Polynomicon. Obviously, you get this late game sort of assassinate build where you can just get the stun, poly into the Dark Omen, turn into anyone you want, and you can really find lots of pressure. So I'm thinking late game, anytime I see the Morgan, that's where my vote sort of leans to.
Well, Oni Warriors are 1 game away from dethroning the former World Championships, bringing them their first set loss of the season and their first set loss since Worlds. Can the Oni Warriors do it here in game number 3?
I'm excited to see how this one shakes out. It's Goran Myth one more time this weekend as we jump into game 3, Leviathans and Warriors. First time that these two teams have ever had to hit a game 3 against each other.
Well, because the Oni Warriors have only ever once in the history of this franchise taken a game off the Leviathans.
And I'm going to keep harping on it, man.
That's a sick stat, honestly.
And now we'll see if they can turn things around. This is, and I'm going to harken back, I think we talked to it at the beginning of, I think it was set 2. J-Mac had mentioned it either on the desk or during the cast, or Trelly had. It was
one of those nerds.
the Dragons, specifically Mike, tweeting out that the separation between the last place team and the first place team in the SBL pretty much closer than it has ever been, right? Everybody feels competitive against everyone, and this set has been like the example for that. It is insane how well the Warriors have been able to keep up with them compared to what we've seen out of them in the past.
Similarly, didn't the Valhalla Valkyries also take a game off of the Atlantis Leviathans during the SPL play-in?
I can't remember if they took a game,
or if
but
it was
I
just
do
like
remember
close.
they
It
yeah,
felt
they kept
close.
it close the entire time, which was impressive. Even the Leviathans afterward were like, that's a team to be worried about. Like in like 3 weeks, that team's going to be a genuine full threat to the SPL, and that means everybody.
Yeah, so luckily for the Leviathans, or maybe unluckily, because that didn't count towards their round-robin play, they've got at least a little bit of data up against the Valhalla Valkyries. But that's beyond the point, all right?
Yeah.
We're in a Game 3
Yeah.
situation. Oni Warriors
Yeah.
up against the Atlantis Leviathans.
Yeah.
And this time around, I'd argue the Oni Warriors have picked a draft that will
Yeah.
be starting off a lot of this aggression. You don't want to play around a hell at this portion of the game, which means that Panatom is going to be slightly limited in where he's allowed to get active on the map. Maybe you see him rotate over towards the duo lane. Could potentially see some solo lane. You really just don't want to be in mid. Whereas Kuvo Fred, he wants to be everywhere. Yarkor susceptible to Palau, Panatom susceptible, even Zapman to a certain extent, once you're able to strip away some of that CC immunity, which is a little bit easier because generally Medusa's a little bit more gung-ho with the Petrify. So keep your eyes on Kuvo.
It's true. It's just fun to hear it described that way. I like the phrase gung-ho.
Okay.
Either way, yeah, no, Zapman, I expect to be pulling the trigger on that ult fairly often. Vote will be the one that's a little more interesting, specifically, having the global nature that it can bring, right? Just being able to join, to split push, things like that are going to be incredibly potent. There's also the Horus ult, and it was drafted afterward. It's not global, but it's a good amount of mobility.
Look, if we can call Thor ult a global, I'm gonna call.
I call it semi-global.
Oh, well, I call it global.
I
So
call it
am I
semi-global.
wrong? What is a global then? Just Nuwa and Neath ult?
Well, no, because
And
Chernobog
Yanis
would be
ult?
global, because he can go anywhere with it.
Well, but he doesn't
Neath
go
ult
like.
would be global because it can go anywhere. But Thor ult, it has a limited range.
Okay.
It's super wide and can go like a chunk of the map. I guess really he only goes.
So there's
what,
only
a
like 2
fifth of it?
globals in the game.
No, there's more than 2 globals.
Fair enough. Talk about the fight.
Okay, it's going to be around the blue buff. And it's going to be Panatom low health. Cuvo dipping low, though. Won't be able to get to the tier 2. A good
Sick
dash
juke.
gets him back under. And Hardcore isn't going to commit to
Wow.
that. It gives Nika first blood. And now they're going to continue to chase. Hardcore is low. And Dardas has
see ya.
rotated. The stun's not going to be there, but the damage
maybe
is
not.
still good. Hardcore peels for himself, but the chase is on Cuvo.
Bye.
Doesn't even need the dash. It's going to be Dardas with the second kill. Good pickups from the Oni Warriors.
That is the Oni Warriors. That is exactly what they needed, especially considering the pace of Game 2, being able to establish a slight lead throughout the early and finding some kills onto some very nice priority targets, specifically Nika now. Going to have a little bit more of an advantage into the lane against Ardio, a god that I would argue has no bad matchups. The only bad matchup is somebody ahead of you, and that's exactly what Nika is right now. Even Dardes on this late game scaling mage, picking up a kill for himself. Going to be very nice. Surprised that Shinto doesn't match that rotation. Doubly surprised that Yarkor walks into a tier 2 tower at level 4. And all that adds up to, lost speeds for Yarkor. So Kuvo Fred's got a great target for his aggression because Nika's follow-up damage on the Palau is just wild. And you've got great CC potential on the tail end.
Stun onto Vote from Among You. Gets the beats out of the carry for the Warriors. And it seems like that's going to be all she wrote over in the duo lane. Going to have the big pause for them. And this is the big question now. I mean, you had just highlighted, but double assassin against this Ardio. One good pull, the Sun, the CC, the follow-up. It's gone into the Soul Eater here for Nika. Not uncommon on this Kleena. It feels like this is going to be a potentially high-pressure solo lane.
Yeah, Soul Eater is the assassin soul lane item. It just is such a great stat stick. I believe it's around 40 power when it's fully stacked up, 10% penetration. And here's the combo we were just talking about.
Yeah, they're going for the pull, and there it is. The damage going to be good.
What do you do?
Jeez.
What do you
do? You cry and then sit in grayscale. At that point, maybe you open the store a little bit earlier so you can get like your item purchases ready and queued up for yourself. Purple buff invaded and stolen away by the Leviathans. Neil Ma
almost
gonna
soloed
be
him.
chasing for a little bit more. They're going for the ult, and that It's going to be just shy damage onto the wrong target there for Dardez. So not going to be able to find anything big onto Zap. But he's still low, and now his beads are gone.
Yeah, Neilma nearly solo Zapman there. Zapman a little bit greedy, trying to hold on to those beads. Takes a little bit more damage than I think he was accounting for. Dropped down to 50%, and now Cubo Fred has got yet another target that he can start looking towards. That said, Zapman at least holds on to the Petrify, so one more line of CC immunity available to him as Yarkor watches his blue buff fall down. Does Nika know Panatom's there? Now he does.
I was going to say, it's been declared very loudly. He even said his own name when he jumped forward. You get to hear the Gilgamesh. And, well, now he gets the beads out of Nika. So
That's
opens up another turnaround for him.
Yeah, that's the Pokemon tech, right?
Yeah.
When you attack, just scream your own name. Makes it stronger.
I think, like, in most circumstances, that is really going to mess with whoever's involved in the fight, right? Like, if you're just screaming your name at them.
Yeah, imagine you and I get a
it's gonna
fist
shake
fight,
you
and I'm
up.
just battering you screaming Mifflin.
Yeah.
That's
I'd like
honestly
to not get in a fist
that's
fight with you,
nightmare fuel, honestly. I wouldn't wish that on anyone. These hammers? Good God.
Yeah, definitely frightening. You have a tendency to ask people about fights.
No, not me.
Not
This
you,
fight,
couldn't be
though.
you.
I'll
This
ask you about
fight
it.
We'll definitely talk about as well. Neil takes maybe too much damage there. Offerings scooped up. It seems like it's going to fizzle out. Neil Ma falling back just a little bit. And that's going to be a huge ult down off the board. But aggressive from this Ganesh. I mean, we've seen more Dharmic Pillars this early on and being used specifically to try and lead the way. And you typically get to see out of a Ganesh, maybe even in you know, some of the mid-game fights.
Yeah, he has been very active here. Leviathans, speaking of active, are able to strip away that purple buff and forcing Vote to retreat back into his Tier 1 tower. Nobody else from the Only Warriors in range to put up a defense. I'm surprised that Cubo Fred has decided to slow down his pace. Despite being 3-0, the Only Warriors gold experience not that heavily in their favor. Really is just Nika, sitting at about a level and a half up, just now ticking over to 10, whereas Yarkor had just previously ticked over towards level 8. So that is where the majority of the experience gap lies. If Nika can force the beads out of Yarkor again, that's probably the easiest target for Cubo Fred to start looking towards. But you're already starting to see that opportunity slip away. Yarkor could, if he so chooses, immediately go into a Breastplate of Valor because it's not a damage split between the solo and jungle. It would essentially double dip. Nika and Cubo Fred become a lot less effective the second he goes that way. But already having the helmet, Yarkor is significantly tankier than he once was.
Yeah, the bead's available now as well, so it's harder to just go, hey, I'm going to pull you in and we'll just kill you.
It might still happen.
It's still, well, and it's that balancing point. Either you do get to pull him in or you get the beads, you get to come back, right? So you do still have plenty of opportunities. Beads up for a lot of people. Makes it more difficult. Dardez single target stuns. Neo Ma, single target CC that he has available. And of course that silence that can be very oppressive in the right circumstances. Don't see a lot of beads for the silence, although it's not uncommon completely. It's just not the most happening thing for the beads to be used for. Oh, Cuvo, the dodgy. I thought was going to rotate in and maybe look for something, but it seems like the Warriors think better of it. And what was a very kind of explosive start for them, Mifflin. They pumped the brakes, slowed things down here 8.5 in, and it's still, you know, like just a few hundred of gold ahead. In fact, it's slowly but surely getting pulled back towards the Leviathans.
And I'll show you the surefire way to see which team is better at macro farm. Once the kills slow down, look at these charts.
Yeah.
Just slowly working their way upward, showing that the Leviathans are just getting more from the map. The Only Warriors have shown up to defend their purple buff this time around, but the Leviathans don't care.
Wrong Yu goes in. Silence is going to be there. CC is good. Good stun from
Shoulda
Zap,
cared.
but it's not enough to stop the kill. In fact, they're going to be able to pick up 2.
Definitely shoulda
Panatom
cared.
Goes down, and now Zapman, what are you going to do to get out of here? Vote
Oh my
has gotten
God.
aggressive, and Cuvo makes a rotation as well. Pick up 3, and that could be and should be a Gold Fury.
Yeah, still have Cubo Fred's ultimate, so if anyone decides to step their way forward, well, they'd probably lose their beads. Except for hell, Shito could just cleanse the old-fashioned way from the kit, but the Leviathans over-aggressive yet again. I suppose just got a little bit too used to having that purple buff go their way, and the Only Warriors, just in showing up, forced the Leviathans into a bad fight. All that macro farm over the last couple of minutes lost out immediately from one massive dip. These charts, they show you exactly what both of these teams are looking for. The Only Warriors, living up to their title, would love to fight. They are warriors in the truest regards, whereas the Leviathans...
They're hitting them with the unsheath.
Yeah, they're just sticking around, man. They're just trying to farm up the map. They'd love to play PvE, but unfortunately for them, they're PvP flagged.
Yeah, this is definitely not where they would like to be. Wrong, you going for a knockup once again. That silence, that is what caused trouble for him last time. And it seems like that's going to be the cue for Wrong You to back away. Neil, I think showcasing what this Ganesh can bring. And we didn't have to go through the painful growing phase of the Ganesh this game. He just kind of started doing it as quickly as he could, and it's been working out for him.
Yeah, the second he ticked over to level 5, again, nearly solo Zapman. But in that, you can see the ADCs have already started to separate slightly. Vote, same in the build, but slightly behind in experience. Zapman 11 to Vote's 10. Oracle fight here will go the way of the Leviathans, a free ward for the Order's side. But the only Warriors now, in removing the gold free from the map, can start to go play around their lead. The guy who has been actually benefiting from that early phase of the game, Nika, 2 levels up, has great objective shred, even in going for a defense item in the second slot. If the only Warriors are able to just buy a little bit of space, rotate over, Pyromancer would go quick.
Oh, there's going to be some CC onto Zap.
Ooh,
The
close.
Use beat's still down. Neil doesn't get the full lockdown. Vote's not going to get a damage burst onto him, so Zap will live to see another day. Mifflin, forgive me if this was mentioned and I just, like, my brain glanced over it, or if we just didn't and we both glanced over it. Is that a Book of Thoth Shinto picked up?
Yeah, the
that's
Book
not
of the
really fast.
The Book of the Dead build seems to have made a slight resurgence. We see it on Zeus every now and then. We see it on Hell. So Book of Thoth, immediately a Breastplate of Valor, immediately tells me that he wants a giant HP shield. So if we see a book picked up in that next slot, wouldn't be overly surprised. It's not the slowest, but you are slowing down your penetration. Hell, more so known for her healing, though, and that's just fine.
Trying to go for survivability. That's what Cuvo needs right now. Trying to get to the tier 2. Won't even opt for that.
Ooh,
Instead,
grabbed him.
goes into the Powwow, gets a 2-man pull, and that is going to be able to separate Cuvo from the aggression of the Leviathan. 6-0 right now in favor of the Warriors in terms of kills. 3,000 gold still sitting in their pockets above what the Leviathans have been able to pick up. And really, that's giving them small moments of clarity here. Not a lot of big explosive fights, and you had mentioned this, but watching the map play from the Leviathans, all the neutral farm that isn't the big objectives or the explosive fights, seems to still be going their way. And any point for a collision, I think the Warriors, well, they're going to need it.
Yeah, and there are places to force those collision points. POIs on the map, if you would, and I called for it 2 minutes ago, and I still think it's the right decision. Only Warriors could start to walk over towards that Pyromancer, Cuvo Fred, starting to gesture towards it himself. Drops a ward. Hey, now he knows that's valuable. No wards on it for the Leviathans, and the only Warriors privy to it can start to walk over. They've got the entire path to the Pyromancer warded up, so they know as long as Dardes isn't spotted out by Shinto in mid, could just walk over to the objective itself. Was face-checked by Wrong You there. It seems like he's of like mind with me, thinks that the only Warriors will likely try and pull that out shortly.
I believe he just swapped it out as well. Wards going to be de-warded by the Warriors and placed down by the Leviathans. So Vision Game in the FG pit, as well as Offerings. Potentially being the name of the game over here. You can see these obelisks close to full. What is that, 1 to 2 more? I think necessary for the Leviathans. A few more needed for the Warriors. Neil has to go for the silence. Some damage from Shinto is good, but not quite good enough. And you called it, another book being built up here by Shinto. Survivability is what he's aiming for. It seems like that's where they'll go. Neil rooted out. There's the Dharmic Pillars trying to create a little bit of separation. And that man comes in, stuns him immediately, and that's going to be a knock-up onto Dardes as well. Transformation
This is
into
big.
the Gilgamesh, and immediately they pick up Zap. Now, where can they find the turnaround? Cuvo's still here.
Wow.
And Cuvo doesn't have the Powwow. Seems like that's going to be what they want out of this. Nika's damage, not going to be able to connect, so it's a 1-for-1.
Nika narrowly avoids the knockup. The blink forward from Wrong You goes unrewarded. Stun no good. Nika forced to use the beads regardless as Panatom may have stepped too far forward.
Ooh, so much damage. Vote credit for the kill. And they make it look good throughout all of that. Dardes a hair away from dying in a moment there. A stun that connects, luckily, onto a clone and not to him. They lose the tier 1, but Panatom and Zap for Neil does not feel bad.
No, not at all. Neilma just collapsed on there. And we got to look at what Shinto's damage is starting to do to some of these squishier targets, despite having 0 penetration in the build so far and only 1 finished dedicated damage item. He slammed Cubo Fred for 500 with that first ability. That is 30%, maybe 40% of Cubo's HP bar. Got to put some respect on this hell on the other side.
And you got to be careful here. Nika playing Protector of the Primal Fury started by the Oni Warriors.
Goodness.
It looks like that should be picked up here any second now. Yeah, there's the kill. And the objective goes their way. Objective control strong for the Warriors so far this set. Took them a little while in game 2 to really get on board with where they needed to be. But it seems like they've righted that ship here in game number 3. Hardcore maybe looking for a little bit more though. Stun into beads immediately. The solo laner chasing down Dardes and Cubo. Panatom joins the fray. Palau is going to come out. Chain's going to be good, but the beads a little bit better. Dardes taking too much damage, and he's going to get taken down. Cubo tries to fight back. He's going to be able to escape with his life. And now Panatom is the one who has to be worried. Leap gets him out of the fight, and it's so far Dardes for none. Nika trying to come into the fray, but he has to use an Aegis and stay alive. He's got the damage to be able to get rid of at least Panatom, and they make this go 1 for 1.
1 for 1, jungle for mid. Dardes back in 25, Panatom in 35. The Leviathans, heavy commitment there. Cost Panatom both of his relics. Beads down for Yarkor and all of that. Just a close gap on a Dardes while he was still exposed with relics down. Ultimate was not even available for the Morgan to try and escape that situation. Great play from Cubo Fred to try and peel out. That's what forces the beads. He goes into the Palau, but no good when that CC immunity is available. However, 16.5 minutes in, first Pyromancer started to be looked at, and first Pyromancer will fall down. Bated breath, Cubo Fred keeping it interesting in the PvE. Luckily, Nika able to get there in time and make sure another objective does go the way of the Oni Warriors, and the gold gap has not extended that far. The experience gap has only shrunk. Every single time a fight isn't happening, you can see it in the charts. It starts to slowly creep back to the Leviathans, and then eventually a POI respawns, and the Oni Warriors are able to take it for themselves. That said, no POIs for a little while. Both Pyro and Gold gone. This is going to be a good breather for the Leviathans, and their draft scales incredibly well. Not just the healing from Shinto. Rongyu's got it. Yarkor's got it. So anti-heal, the name of the game for the Oni Warriors. Panatom always going to be a good initiator. And Zapman going down that crit tree means that he's about 1 item away, a Deathbringer, from just shredding these neutral objectives. Leviathans, they've slowed down this game. Can the Oni Warriors find somewhere to force another fight?
Well, they're looking for one now. Cubo was able to get out with their life. Managed to maintain the Palau as well. So a big win, I guess, for them. Bead still down for Hardcore Panatom. Honestly, maybe could have turned that around with the right assistance. A good Palau could have picked up some good pulls. And that's where things get really, I want to say shaky, the most shaky here for the Leviathans. It's these bead timers specifically up against Cubo and where Cubo's presence has been, 2-0-4. You know, Season 7, we talked about it. Season 8, we talked about it. Not necessarily the best performances from him. Good dash into the wall from Vote. And now Dardes using the Chernobog ult to get over here with Neil Ma. They're going to chase him down, and they're going to be able to just kill Zapman. Panatom trying to run away. The Horus is here. But Wrong You, honestly, it might not be the place you want to be.
We got him.
The chain's going to be locked, and that's the pull back in. Cubo puts a third onto his belt and finds another kill.
Now, can the Oni Warriors keep up this siege? Nika has locked eyes with 2 members of the Leviathans elsewhere on the map, so the only one in range to defend is Wrong You. Nika allows both Shinto and Yarkor to slip away into the jungle, but they have not backed. The Leviathans will allow this Tier 2 tower to fall down. The Oni Warriors effectively extend their lead even further. This is one of the largest we've seen in their favor so far, and we're approaching that 19 to 20 minute mark, that magical moment in the SPL, in competitive Smite, where Fire Giant seems to become available to all these teams. And the objective shred for the Oni Warriors is massive. Similarly to how I was talking about Zapman going down that crit tree, Vote has done the same. Wind Demon finished. You've got a dot auto attack jungle in Cubo Fred. You've got phenomenal objective shred from Nika, just piercing the veil. Doesn't even have to be there once he drops those ultimates. And Dardes, Changeling might not be up right now, but he could turn into any one of those and just even further push that expediency on these objectives. The only thing lacking for the Oni Warriors is objective confirmed. They don't really have a massive ability that is going to be able to match up to a Petrify or even maybe the Repulse from Hell. That said, you might not need it. I didn't even talk about Dharmic Pillars. That's the hardest hitting ability in the game.
Yeah, it hits chunky, and it makes sure that Fire Giants typically, or whatever objective, goes down quickly. That objective might be a Leviathans player. Fire Giant kind of poked around by the Warriors, and yet they let that one fall to the wayside as the Leviathans step up. Hardcore, notably, the one kind of leading the charge to keep it even. It's 5,000 gold, Mifflin, the largest lead that the Warriors have been able to pick up so far this game. And despite the way that the fights have been going, you're starting to see, I think, the impact that the Leviathans farm game has had, at least in terms of keeping up an experience. Shinto hits 20 before any of the Warriors, and then immediately Nika is following it up. Has gone to the Book of the Dead, has gone into an Obsidian Shard.
He hits hard now.
I don't think we've seen a lot from this held just yet, and I think we're about to.
Yeah, I mean, the few glimpses of this Hell's damage output that we've seen have not bode well for the Oni Warriors, but I think Hell's main strength is to elongate these team fights and utilize that healing. We have not seen long team fights as of yet. Generally, it's one team just catching the other unaware, the Oni Warriors finding a couple picks, conveyor belt from there, the Leviathans doing the same, rarely, only 2 kills for them so far. As Yarkor and Rongyu walk up into mid, Cubo Fred nearby. I thought I might see the Pal out there, at least to burn some beads, but not the case.
They're not going to get burned. Notably, no beads for Rongyu, so CC immunity either comes from the ult or it doesn't come at all. So the Warriors might have a target they can pull in there. Gold Fury had been pulled by the Leviathans and then immediately dropped here by them when the Warriors stepped up. And it's interesting to see 21.5 minutes in, there's more positioning on the left side of the map for a Gold Fury than we're seeing around the FG.
I mean, we see it all the time. They might be at the Gold Fury because it feels safer, but with death timers as long as they are right now, whoever dies at the Gold Fury, you're just going to the Fire Giant immediately afterward, regardless. It's just an easier area to fight around because you're not having this giant, angry lava man spawning pools at your feet constantly.
Hardcore silenced out for a little bit of damage. Gold Fury picked up by the Leviathans. Vote should see it, but I don't know that Vote, can do anything about it. Leviathans picked that one up. Close gap a little bit on that gold lead. And I was thinking about the fact that Horus, maybe you bait over to the Gold Fury, let the Warriors come in for the fight, and then you just ult on over towards the FG and try to force him into an awkward spot. Same thing could be said for Dardes, who goes in the transformation, Powwow into the sky. And he's going to be looking for some pulls. There's the second one, and now they're looking for more chains, beads. Not going to be good enough for everybody. Nika kills off Hardcore, and now it's the go button, but Neil, he's taking too much damage. The tower is going to help out the Leviathans here, help them kill off the support. And it's 1 for 1. Rongyu once more. Vote trying to get out of here, goes up into the skies, needs more assistance. He's going to come crashing back down exactly where he was. Dardes in base, Cuvo unsure about the fight. Dashed into the wall one more time, and Vote is prolonging his life as best he can. Damage is good, but the stun's gonna be a little bit better. The Warriors lose another. Now Cuvo, Dardes, Nika, everything on the plate, everything on the table need to be the ones to defend.
Yeah, Neil Mod just a little bit too far forward there, gets caught out, and Cuvo Fred a little bit slow on pulling in. Panatom beads is out, the Powwow, but incredibly late. I'm not sure if he realized a little bit late, but he had the chain on him for upwards of 3-4 seconds, and that's a long time in Smite. Regardless, Cubo Fred at least able to get that relic for himself. The Leviathans, however, defend their tier 1 and take the team fight. They take the Pyromancer to boot, and this gold gap has been cut down yet again.
Oh my god.
These charts are ridiculous, man. The Leviathans, how do you establish a lead? The Oni Warriors, they're 12-4. They've gotten the majority of the objectives this game, and they just cannot hold on to it. The lead is slipping through their hand like sand between your fingers. The Leviathans, they'll take you to a long game, and they've got the draft for it.
They're more than happy. I mean, we used to talk about this all the time in Season 7, but they love 5-on-5 engagements. They're really good at 5-on-5 engagements.
The sanguine win condition.
It was, hey, we're going to lose for 15 minutes, but then we're going to team fight at you.
And then eventually they just started winning the whole time.
Yeah, and that's when things got, very scary. And you'll never guess it. They won a world championship not too long after all of that. So the Leviathans, a team that's difficult to contend with, this showcasing why more than anything. 3 times the kills is what the Warriors have picked up. Pretty much every neutral objective that they could think of, but 1 Gold Fury more recently goes towards the Leviathans. Pyromancer towards the Leviathans. And all of a sudden, we're back within 2K. And 25 minutes, Mifflin? That means virtually nothing.
It sure doesn't. Experience also means nothing at this point because the experience gap is even lower than last time when I got super lucky with like that 400 guess, because every single one of the carries are all level 20, both supports sitting at level 16. So goal difference right now generally is going to be who's upgrading their relics first, who's getting the more sentry wards in their pockets, who's able to drop more vision on the map to vie and jockey for positioning around the largest of the neutral objectives, the Fire Giant. We're about 5 minutes away from it enhancing. Wouldn't be surprised if we see it enhance before it falls. Neomar, though, able to reestablish vision control towards the center. Meanwhile, junglers 1v1.
CC is going to be the name of the game here. Cuvo takes a lot off the drop kick. Wins the Shamash dropped away. Cuvo has to get out of here, but he's not going to be able to escape. And that's a free kill for the Leviathans. Panatom chases him down.
Full HP, by the way.
Does not matter if you've got the ward vision for the Warriors. This should be a start up for the Leviathans, or at least comfort around the FG pit for the Leviathans.
Yeah, major fumble from Cuvo Fred there, who chose that fight, by the way. It wasn't Panatom chasing out the Daji. It was quite the opposite. 40 seconds of the grayscale to think about his mistakes as Fire Giant drops low.
Dardez comes around the bottom of the pit, doesn't hit his damage onto Zap. The Fire Giant gets leashed. It's sitting around 1/4 HP, and they're going to jump in. It is going to be a Gilgamesh versus Shinto as they try to copy and replicate what Panatom's been able to do. The team's going to be able to come in. Neil loses his life, and now it's even longer. I mean, look at this, 40 seconds on Cuvo and Neil, and it's a 3v5. Fire Giant leash Dardez too low. Nika might be their only chance for a steal.
Is that timer right? Was Cubo's death timer so much longer that Neomar is going to respawn first? No, Cubo Fred has just respawned. Okay, must have been my own brain freaking out there. Neomar, 20 seconds till he's back. Cubo Fred respawns in time to hear the death wails of the Fire Giant, and 5 members of the Leviathans get to wear it on their belt. Tier 1 tower on the right-hand side seems pretty appetizing and low committal for the world champions, and the Leviathans waited for 26 actual minutes for exactly this opportunity. This is the team fight composition. They can 5-stack for the rest of the game with Fire Giant as well. The Oni Warriors going to struggle in a defense because they have an unorthodox mage in mid. That is essentially just an assassin that does magical damage. The Morrigan doesn't even really have the greatest transformations for a defense. Maybe you turn into Panatom. Maybe you turn into Cuvo Fred. Those seem to be the 2 targets. Wouldn't be overly surprised even if we see like a Neomod transformation, just because Dharmic Pillar is so good at controlling space in these situations. That said, the Leviathans, we're just going to clear out the map first. They're going to make sure they cross their T's and dot their I's before they open up the doors. Plenty of towers left to collect gold from as well, and their siege is strong because they're benefiting from healing. They just have to take the fight as long as possible. Shinto's been waiting for that. He hasn't had an opportunity to just play it slow and heal his boys. Now he does.
You got to talk about that Book of the Dead. Very clutch for his last life. I mean, there were 2 assassins chasing him down, and neither of them were able to get the kill, so it makes things a lot easier for him. Spell focus just now, tier 2 towards that Obsidian Shard, scooped up by Dardez. And you have to think back, end of game 2, just shy of being able to find a dub for the Warriors and close it out after a really good team fight late. Gives me hope. I mean, that showcases how well they'll, and their tenacity, their elasticity, and their mental, that they'll sit here and they'll watch a Phoenix get taken. They'll fight you back whether or not they think they have the perfect chance. But will they be able to find another position to threaten the Titan of the Leviathans? 3 towers still standing for the Levis. And they're about to knock down the last one up for the Warriors. No Phoenixes just yet. And only a minute and 40 left on the power play.
Yeah, look at the gold swing, though. It's so much now in favor of Leviathans. These charts are ridiculous. The Leviathans probably not going to approach a Phoenix here because they just cleared out 3 tier 2s, Gold Fury, a tier 1, and potentially a Pyromancer now as well. That's a lot of gold in their pockets. Still a minute and a half left on the Fire Giant power play, so maybe we see them head back to base and play with like the remaining 30 seconds they'll have once they regroup towards the center of the map. But the Oni Warriors won't be there because they weren't willing to defend the tier 2s. Doubt they're going to defend the remnants of what used to be tier 1s. So the Leviathans have essentially geared themselves up for another Fire Giant power play, or another Fire Giant dance, essentially. And this time, they've got the superior team fight composition. We're at the 30-minute mark, so it's going to be enhanced. All their relics are up. You're already starting to upgrade your starters. Shinto's got his Book of the Dead passive available. The Oni Warriors going to have to work hard on their dive. Who's dealing with Shinto in the pack? I'm not sure. Just about anybody can, because even if Dardes transforms into Cuvo Fred, it's not as if one Cuvo Fred going to burn beads, second Cuvo Fred going to pull him in. That's a hell. He's got to cleanse in the kit. You're going to have to work really, really hard to shut him down.
The more grouped up they are, the worse it is for you. All of a sudden, it's like, hey, by the way, all those beads, we don't even have to use them. 4 of them available on the side of Leviathans, all 4 up. Some even upgraded the full way there for Panatom and Shinto. So they're going to be more than happy to have those ready and available for the next fight. And you called it on the nose here. It is going to be 5 seconds left of the power play. And Wrong Yu is utilizing that time to steal away offerings. Spawn
Yeah, give me that.
their scepter.
Oh, you thought I was going to say something insightful.
No, I had to take a breath. So it worked out just really well that I got very quiet for you. And now, Mifflin, we're going to be watching for a minute as the teams pretty much change up vision around the FG. Figure out how to get things going. Where, if you're looking for it, Leviathans, you've mentioned it, team fight central. I mean, it is exactly what they want. Where's the win condition for the Warriors?
Do you want the silver lining truth where I create intrigue, or do you want the truth?
Let's...
I'll give you both.
give me both. Give me the intrigue first so I can feel wonderment.
The intrigue is that their composition is much better in a pick situation. You don't want to be forced into a 5-on-5 engagement. You don't want to be inside of your own Phoenix, so you will expect them to fight here on the Fire Giant. The real truth, though, is that their comp probably should have been pushing their lead about 17 minutes ago.
When they didn't.
No, it was a slow pace. I really thought we'd see a much faster Fire Giant from them when they were 5, 6, 7,000 gold in the lead. Instead, the Leviathans were allowed to slowly recoup all their losses.
Well, speaking of 6,000 gold in the lead, Leviathans have not only that lead, but maybe the FG going their way. They started up half health on the objective, and they're going to pause it as the Warriors do step up to fight. Dardes takes a little bit of poke throughout all of this, maybe looking for a stun. With Panatom's position, they might be able to find something here. He's going to get the lead, followed up by Cuvo. The damage is going to be good. We've seen this play through one more time, but this time Cuvo has a little more help, and he's looking for anyone to pull in.
He's still
Not
alive?
gonna be able to find it. Panatom is absolutely still kicking it, and they have the healing necessary. I mean, he's got a hell behind him, and it's going to be the engage from the other side. Horus looking to drop down.
That's
Neil
not good.
knocked up from it, and all Leviathans are here to find their kills. That man does go down, but they lose 2 in the process for the Warriors. Dardes, Cuvo, and Nika forced to run away to try and stay alive.
You're telling me the Leviathans won a team fight and Zapman's in the grayscale? That is breaking news. Just kidding. It happens pretty often for the Leviathans. Cuvo Fred on the retreat. The
That's
Leviathans.
Like all Oxy's notes ever say.
Zapman dead. Everything's good from there. Cuvo Fred going to try and retreat. Trickster Spirit towards the minion wave. Going to be available shortly and should secure his escape. Surprise Leviathans. We're willing to chase all the way here? Oh, this is why. Okay.
Oh, yeah, they're going for the kill. They're going to be able to find it, no problem.
Wow.
That is a minute without Cubo, and everyone else is going to be respawning soon.
Nika too?
Nika gone.
Whoa.
Dardes has to sit back and relax while this Phoenix goes down. He's not going to have anything to say about this. Leviathans, yeah, there's no way they push into this with 2 respawning soon. They can fall back. That's an EFG sitting on the other side. Was that back in 5? It seems like it should be up on the board.
So we saw the Oni Warriors essentially make the adaptation of, okay, Cubo Fred can't take the 1v1 up against Panatom. Maybe we could take a 3v1 up against Panatom? Simply not the case. Wins a Shimasha on your feet, leap away, jumps towards Shinto. Shinto resustains him mightily in that fight, and Panatom was able to re-engage with his Horus ult just a little bit later on. Now the Leviathans, in an even better position, if you could believe it, than they were 5 minutes ago, can start to group up on the Fire Giant yet again. This time with a map state advantage. Fire minion waves already starting to work their way forward on the left-hand side. Luckily for the Oni Warriors, Vote can clear him out and TP over with his ultimate. Unluckily for the Oni Warriors, it's pretty clear where Vote's going to TP once he does go up into the air. Just got to camp out those shadows, and the burst potential of the Leviathans is high.
Now, Mifflin, pray tell, I'm either absolutely insane and forgetting some of the upgraded icons, or I don't see an Ankh on the side of the Warriors against a team that has RDO, Hell, and Horus.
I'm looking at him.
Because that's Beads up there for Nika. He's got Aegis. Beads Aegis for Dardes. Beads Aegis
I'm not
for
seeing an
Vote.
Ankh, man.
Yeah, that is maybe not what you want against this comp. A lot of healing.
Yeah, hover them all, Doug. Let them know that it
and-
should have been an
and just
Ankh.
not there. Yeah, the Hastened Wings are the ones that maybe catch me off guard the most here. That's a lot of healing that is not getting shut down. You've got a Contagion, 2 Brawlers, and not a lot left in the tanks.
okay.
But Shinto gets burned down.
He's full health.
Fist, and wow, he has all of his health back, and now the Leviathans fall back. And watch this as they just temper through all of their health bar.
Panatom.
Got low, but it's not enough. Cuvo up on the Powwow pulls in 1, but it's just that
Uh-oh,
man. They get
uh-oh.
Panatom, they get Shinto. They're looking for Zap. This might be the turnaround they needed. Nika is able to dash forward.
Okay.
The damage is looking good. They don't need the Ankh if you can just kill him, and they're going to push even further. A 4-man swing. Wrong you stays alive, but where do they go? What do they do with the pressure? 2 towers up, and they have fire minions on the left. It looks like Cuvo's chasing down the kill. The rest of the team's going to start running down mid.
Yeah, Cuvo Fred's got Wrong You dead to rights, and he should be able to rejoin his team very shortly. The Oni Warriors
Can they win?
have got 30 seconds to play with. Don't go through mid, maybe go through left. You don't have an enhanced fire giant. Would probably be quicker to just walk past this and go to the left side. Phoenix, who am I to say? The Oni Warriors know what they're doing. Tier 2 tower will fall down. Mid Phoenix being approached. Still 20 seconds left to play with. They might have this.
Oh, they're walking forward. This Phoenix is falling pretty quick. It's 35.
Oh, they
in
got it.
The game, and they walk in. The Oni Warriors, for the first time in their franchise, take a win. And look at Cuba, well deserved.
I thought our chair was
as
about to get
they
knocked out.
beat the Leviathans.
That is nuts. You said they didn't need the Ankh. I would argue they won that team fight twice and did not necessarily need to win it twice had they had the Ankh. But the Oni Warriors do it in style in Game 3. One major misplay changes that entirety of the last team fight. Shinto and Zapman connected by the Powwow. Only one of them gets cleansed. Can you guess which one got cleansed? Shinto drops it at his own feet. Zapman gets pulled in, and the entirety of the team fight falls apart from there. The Oni Warriors, though, gotta give it up, man. What an impressive set.
Well played. I mean, I think the only reason I think Cuvo chases that kill on Narangi, he's having flashbacks. He's like, there's fire minions go over there. Wrong Yu's alive. I'm not letting him walk into the Titan room.
Nobody's
We are
backdooring me.
not gonna let this happen. And they stop it. Could have had it in 2, but they do get it in 3. And Mifflin, I think this is a testament to how close the league is. The Warriors, 7th place throughout last year, take down the reigning world champs here in Phase 1. And that is a hell of a way to kick off the phase and end the first week. I'm going to go relax. I could maybe talk to some of the Warriors here. They must be in a great mood.
Don't talk to
see.
Levi's.
No,
They're not happy about
leave
that.
them alone for a little while. And we'll break all of that down. Of course, look at next week right after this.
shaky there at the end of that game. Thought the Leviathans might have been able to bring it back, but one team fight around that right side Phoenix, and the Oni Warriors were able to bounce back in, clean D aside the Atlantis Leviathans, and surge up the mid lane to take game number 3. It's J-Mac. I got Trelly here to help me break down the remainder of that game. I mean, Warriors had control from almost minute 1 during that game, and the Leviathans snap it back to themselves, and then that's when we finally get that very last little siege there by the Oni Warriors to bring us game 3.
Yeah, it's funny because we were talking during the break that it seemed like Shinto was just unkillable. And then we sort of looked at his build, and I was like, a lot of physical damage, not a lot of magical damage. If this full damage Morgan can get to him, he'll just get one shot. And then we saw right at that Phoenix line, Dardes was able to go in Viz, assassinate, hit the beautiful stun into the poly shot, and then chase that one down. Just a ton of burst damage coming out of that Morgan pick late game. And again, it seemed like Shinto really just itemized into the Book of the Dead build, but the Breastplate of Valor was the big thing that was stopping Cuvo from being able to kill the hell.
It still wasn't easy, though, for the Oni Warriors, just because one thing that was brought up during the very end there was no Curse Donk on their side of the Oni Warriors, so they essentially had to fight Shinto and Zapman twice during that last fight, but there was just enough damage out there on the side of the Oni Warriors to chip through 2 separate health bars for each of those carries here. Oni Warriors, a very impressive turnaround after their week 1 performance in their very first set up against the Bolts. It was a bit of a struggle going up against them. They end up falling down to the Bolts 2-1, and now here, dethroning the Leviathans. Leviathans now taking their first full set loss since the World Championships.
Look at this. That's the one shot right there where it was just how was he even able, as an Invis Mori, to just walk through that fight with so much damage flying and still get the stun off and get that amazing bounce. So props to Dardes for just able to getting his DPS off so that that fight did go the way it was. Obviously, everyone on the team was looking crisp there. I'm very happy for them that they were able to pull that one out because of the way that that game 2 ended, obviously. But it just seemed like the Oni Warriors still had control despite going down just a bit, losing that FG. They still were in it, and their team fight was solid.
Yeah, I mean, it was a rough mid-patch there for the Oni Warriors here in game number 3, but that one Phoenix defense is all that they need. And when you get to these games that are going 30, 35, 40 minutes, that's all it takes because those respawn timers really start adding up to 50, 60 plus seconds at that point.
Yeah, and like you asked me at the beginning of that game, which one of the late games are you going to give, the edge here just for the draft? And I said, if I see a Morgan on the team, late game, full build, that's the edge I'm going to give it to. And that damage was just, we were able to see just how much you can really do with a full build Morgan. The assassinations are just, they're going to be coming in just from the invis, and if you can't spot her out, you're going to get one shot.
And these double Pal-Laos that were coming out, not just between Dardes transforming into the Dodgy, but also just from the Dodgy here, was working wonders for the Oni Warriors. They get their win, and we'll get to talk to the jungler himself. Cuvo Fred standing by for our pregame interview out here. Cuvo, first off, congrats on a big win against the Leviathans. How does it feel finally getting a big win over this team?
I mean, it feels great to play to our potential. I know we had it all along, and last year was obviously rough, and then with the Worlds and qualifiers, I want to say we haven't been looking our cleanest. But I know we had the potential all along, and it's a long year, obviously. But it's nice to get a W against the champs, against Sapman, of course, as well, my boy. But yeah, great to get a W for sure.
Yeah, it was a great win out here. Game number 2, talk a little bit about it. You guys won that last team fight, and then was there any like vision towards Panatom? Is it just he kind of snuck by you guys and kind of snagged that one out from under y'all?
I mean, it's how the game goes sometimes. It's a great play on their behalf. I was having a back for like half a second. I'm like, surely we can just end before he even makes it. Clean as a character, and he just takes a game. Like, he just backdoors a game, and nothing but respect to them. Like, great play for them, recognizing that it's a play to make, and well played, yeah.
Yeah, and you guys took a risk leaving the Kleena open again in game number 3. When you guys saw that the Leviathans had drafted the Ardio in place of the Kleena, was that just an instant, we need to take this guy now kind of moment?
I mean, I don't want to give too much away. But yeah, I mean, we have our priorities, and we also know how they like to play, so we come in and we know how we want to trade the picks, and we know what kind of picks we're looking for. So yeah, I mean, I don't want to give too much away.
Nah, understandable there. Well, you guys look good today in your set. Congratulations on your big win. I'll let you get back with the rest of the team to celebrate.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it.
Yeah, big win out there. Obviously, you don't want to give too many things away, as he says there, but, I mean, it was something that we were kind of looking at onto the desk. We saw that the Kleena was left open, and both of our minds immediately went, okay, cool, Leviathans can just grab this pick, run it back here, but instead they picked up the Ardio, and then it's a turnaround snap pick there by Nika to pick up that Kleena for his team and lead his team here at that very last little team fight, picking up a double kill alongside Cuvo Fred, finding some massive Pal-Laos through this fight. A big win here by the Oni Warriors.
Yeah, I would say I respect, not giving up strats, but saying Kleena is good. I don't think that's a hot take here after what we've seen. So Cuvo could have just said, yeah, Kleena's pretty good, and we would have been like, okay, good call. That would have been done. But obviously, there was a little bit more mind games there, leaving open the Kleena so that the RDO was there.
As you can see, as the schedule shows here, 2 1s and 2 O's galore throughout the entirety of our second and third day of the SPL. Oni Warriors finding a big win here over the Leviathans, Tartarus Titans with their first game of the weekend. In the first game of their season, they find a win over the Jade Dragons. And earlier today, the Scarabs able to bump themselves up and find a win of their own over against the Valhalla Valkyries. That was a little bit of a struggle. Valkyries did give them some trouble in that very first game. And we get a first look at the standings here. It is a tie all the way down from 2nd to 7th seed, which is just the nature sometimes when you'll have a couple of sets here. Tartarus Titans, the undisputed number 1 seed with only a single win and no losses here. Valhalla Valkyries at the bottom for now at the 0-1. But nice little fun 6-way tie right in the center.
It's nice to see, yes, one team that's undefeated and one team that's unwinned so far, I suppose. So we just get a little bit of diversity there, obviously. Whichever team loses to the Valks, everyone's going to roast them for like a week, and whichever team shuts down the Titans is going to get heavily praised. It's very early on, very early days in this league. Obviously, still a very fresh season, I would say. A lot of strats to be had here. And right now, I'm just looking at the rise of Kleena at the moment.
Or maybe potentially a fall of Kleena if things keep going at this point. After watching a set like this, I hope that I never see that god again in one of my games. I hope that we never see it again in the SPL just because of how insane this god has been able to turn things around for these teams out here. Great plays across the board, great sets for this entire weekend to go back and watch. Make sure that you are going back over there. I'm just going to throw the shout out to the SMITE Bod YouTube channel. If you missed any of those games, definitely go back there and take a look at those. But, Trelly, I mean, this is obviously only week 1 of the SPL. We're going to have plenty more action to go through here, but for these teams able to find their first wins in the season, it's got to be a nice little start for them.
Yeah, I would say, and if you are a Valks fan at home, obviously they had a great game 1. You know, they definitely showed some promise there just because they haven't found their first win yet. I wouldn't say right off this squad yet, a lot of young talent, but again, they looked very solid in their set versus the Scarabs, and I'd say they have some early growing pains, as we've mentioned a few times.
Yeah, and that's just the nature of coming into a brand new league with the big boys now. Taking a look at the schedule for next week. Starting things off over on Friday, we'll have the Solar Scarabs up against the Camelot Kings, Oni Warriors, and the Jade Dragons. Then, immediately after that, on Saturday, we'll have the Atlantis Leviathans, Tartarus Titans, the Valhalla Valkyries up against the Oni Warriors for our second match of that day. And then we'll still have plenty more to go beyond there. I mean, it's not just going to be these 4. Obviously, make sure you're tuning in Sunday for the remainder of our matchups there. But not just the SPL going on, no, Trello. We got plenty more going on across the scenes here. We got the SCC that's going to be taking part on Thursday, Friday, and Saturday. And, fun fact, we're also going to have the Tartarus Titans here in studio on Wednesday.
Are you talking about Content Day?
We are talking about that day. We're going to have them in here. They're going to be playing some games, maybe answering some trivia, maybe doing some 1v1s. You never know what's going to happen on one of our media days here with the pros. So make sure that you tune in on Wednesday to hang out with the pros just like we will. Thursday, we'll have the SCC, and then we'll be back on Friday for the kickoff of Week 2 of the SPL. On behalf of myself, Trelly, all the casters, production, everyone behind the scenes, thank you for tuning in, and we'll see you next time.